Chapter 59. How interesting. It's quite rare to see someone like that. The pig spoke human language, turned around, and went into the fields on the side of the road. As the two of them walked forward, the dirt road slowly turned into a large road. More and more people started to gather. This is the official road to Baihua, Immortal Country's capital. Once they're on this road, they can't fly anymore. They can only walk with their feet. The two of them hurriedly walked for about 10 minutes, reaching a fork in the road. At the fork was a large blue rock, with a white goose standing on top of it. The white goose stretched out his wings, impatiently ordering the crowd. Those who want to enter the city go to the right. Those who want to pass the list come here for a poem exchange. Don't push. You won't be able to fly even if you do. The two of them looked around. The road to the right was filled with people, but there were even more people at the fork, Foundation Establishment, Golden Core, even Rejuvenation Realm cultivators. What? Today we're going to have a poem exchange. A lot of people showed a troubled expression. Some of them sighed and took a few steps back. Others crossed their arms, wanting to see how others would do a poem exchange. Every day, the topic is different. The guide is also different. Whether or not you can pass the guide's test and enter the road on the left requires a certain amount of luck. Today, the goose is going to have a poem exchange. Cultivators only want to become stronger every day. Not many of them have the leisure to study poetry. Poem exchange? I do have some experience, but I don't know if the topic is hard or not. Lung Tianxing was a bit hesitant, muttering, "Come with me." Gu Qing pulled Lung Tianxing along, squeezing in front of the white goose. "Give me the spirit stones," he whispered. "Spirit stones? How much?" Lung Tianxing asked. 20, Gu Qing answered. Lung Tianxing took out 20 spirit stones and gave them to her. Gu Qing put the spirit stones on the table, clasped her fist to the white goose, and said, "Brother Goose, please do me a favor. You don't want to exchange poems? What's the point of putting these common things here?" The white goose scoffed. Gu Qing sincerely said, "I really do have something urgent I need to ask the Venerable. Please help me." The white goose opened its eyes wide, staring at Gu Qing, suddenly showing a bit of seriousness in its eyes. It stretched out its wings and swept across the blue stone, and the spirit stone immediately disappeared. "Hurry up and go. Don't just stand there like an idiot in front of me," White Goose said impatiently. "Thank you." Gu Qing signaled Lung Tianxing with her eyes, then turned left. Everyone's jaws dropped. So this was possible. Not only was the bribe not punished on the spot, but it was also passed. Immediately, someone took out a bunch of spirit stones and placed them on the green stone. He smiled apologetically and said, "Goose Grandpa, please do us a favor." "Oh." The white goose raised his head. "And why?" The man bowed and said, "I really have an urgent matter to ask Celestial Sovereign for. Please help me." "Huh." The white goose spread its wings, sweeping the spirit stones on the ground, shouting, "Go back." The man was taken aback. He pointed at Gu Qing, who had not gone far, and asked in dissatisfaction, "Why can he go there?" White Goose said, "He has something urgent." The man said, "I also have an urgent matter." White Goose looked down at the man from above, coldly laughed. "What the hell do you have an urgent matter?" The man shouted, "You're being unfair. I'm going to complain." White Goose lightly said, "Did you have fun at Ihong Brothel last night? You ate 8 plates of spirit cooking this morning, and you still think that's not enough? Are you in a hurry to go back and eat more?" The man froze, his face flushed red, then quickly left the crowd. White Goose proudly flapped his wings, shouting, "No one can hide from my eyes. If you want to pass, you'll have to recite a poem." The crowd watched as Gu Qing left, curious as to what he had to go through for the white goose to let him pass. Gu Qing and Lung Tianxing were quickly walking on the road. Lung Tianxing couldn't help but say, "That goose sure was easy to get rid of." Gu Qing said, "Don't underestimate it." Lung Tianxing was surprised. "Why not?" Gu Qing smiled, but didn't say anything. Not too long after, the two of them suddenly arrived at a ferry. There was only a single old boat at the ferry. The old ferryman was sitting at the bow, smoking a pipe. "Can we go now? We'll rent the boat," Lung Tianxing said. The ferryman struggled to stand up, looking at the two of them seriously. All right, let's go. The two of them boarded the boat, and very quickly it left the shore. Ahem. Then, if you want to enter the royal city's list, you'll have to pass me first, the ferryman said as he pushed the boat. Please enlighten me. Gu Qing Shan clasped his fist. Lung Tianxing also clasped his fist. The ferryman said, "There's a fish in this river. It's very big, black from top to bottom. I call it the big black fish. Catch it for me." "Yes, sir." Gu Shan looked at the river. Under the calm surface, the rapid undercurrent can travel 1,000 miles. "I'm good at swimming, but to catch a fish in a place like this, I'll have to think of a safe way." Dong! A sound came from behind. Gu Shan turned around, only to see Lung Tianxing had taken off his armor, taking off his boots. "You gonna go into the water?" Gu Shan asked. Our Yaoguang sect is at sea. I've been fishing in the deep sea since I was young. The river is nothing. Leave this to me," Lung Tianxing said confidently. Lung Tianxing jumped up high, elegantly dived into the river, quickly disappearing without a trace. The river was calm for about 10 minutes. Suddenly, a series of bubbles came out from the water. A few seconds later, Lung Tianxing jumped out of the water with a big black fish as long as his body. One man and one fish were both frozen inside the ice. You could feel the bone-chilling cold even from afar. If you look carefully, you'll find that the black fish's demonic energy waves are gradually suppressing Lung Tianxing's spirit energy. The fish's eyes were vertical. Its mouth was full of sharp teeth. It was trying its best to shake its body, causing the layers of ice to fall off. Lung Tianxing's face was pale, obviously at his limit. His last 2 crimson crane chi-holding pills were all given to Gu Shan. He's already at his limit, almost unable to restrain the big black fish. Suddenly, the big black fish twisted its head, opened its bloody mouth to bite Lung Tianxing whoosh. A streak of light came, pierced through one of the big black fish's eyes, then went through the other eye. It was Gu Shan who saw the situation wasn't going well, took out the night rain and python tooth arrow to save him. The big black fish struggled for a while, slowly flipped over and floated to the surface. "You did a good job." The boatman pushed the small boat over, pulling the big black fish onto the boat. "What's next is my job. Wait here for a bit." Saying so, the boatman propped the big black fish on the boat, took out a shiny dagger, and quickly cut the meat. Lung Tianxing took a deep breath, jumped onto the boat, looked at Gu Shan, and shook his head. "I'm sorry," Gu Shan replied. "It's not your fault. Who would have thought a fish would be a Foundation establishment peak?" The two of them sat down on the edge of the boat, silently waiting for the boatman to process the fish. "I'm begging you. Can't you be a bit gentler?" The fish suddenly spoke in human language. Half of the flesh on its body had already been shaved clean, leaving behind fish bones that carried a strong, salty smell. Gu Shan and Lung Tianxing looked at each other, a bit scared. This fish is already dead. Half of its flesh is gone. How can it still speak human language? Chapter 60. Hearing that, the big black fish didn't say anything else. Its trembling body made Gu Shan and Lung Tianxing understand what kind of pain it's going through. This is basically a death by 1,000 cuts. Even a demon beast wouldn't be able to endure such a punishment. Seeing their serious expressions, the ferryman said, "Don't pity it, why?" Lung Tianxing asked. You can't tell, but this demon fish's cultivation is already at Ascended Realm late stage. Almost Sainted Realm, the ferryman laughed. The two of them were even more surprised. A demon beast that's about Ascended Realm is being killed by 1,000 cuts. How is that possible? Then why would it? Lung Tianxing couldn't help but ask. Because it couldn't hold back its appetite. In one night, it devoured 5 islands. Every living being on those islands were eaten by it. Just humans alone were eaten by it, at least 100,000. The ferryman cut him off and coldly laughed. The ferryman used a small knife to cut off the fish, then continued. In a fit of rage, the immortal venerable captured it and sealed its cultivation, making it suffer 100,000 times of death by 1,000 cuts before it can reincarnate. The last piece of fish was cut off. Other than the head, the only thing left was the crystal clear bones. The ferryman wiped his hands and said, "Today is only the 7,351st time. There's still a long way to go before it reaches 100,000 times." As he spoke, he raised his hand and threw the whole fish into the river. The white-boned fish swam for a while, then silently sank. Hearing that, Long Tianxing's heart skipped a beat, praising, as expected of Bai Hua immortal venerable. The ferryman smirked, saying, "Stop flattering our immortal venerable. What list do you two want to try for? Say it now." Long Tianxing thought for a bit, then said, "This humble one wants to try for the ancient items list." The ferryman clapped his hands, saying, "Great, it really is fate. You can disembark now." Disembark? Long Tianxing looked around. Other than the small boat, there was only water everywhere. The ferryman crouched down, picked up a floating willow branch from the water, and gave it to Long Tianxing. "This place is an underwater ruin left behind from the age of old. 100,000 years ago, during the Great Desolate Era, a mountain god and a water god fought here. In the end, it both died here. This willow branch can keep you safe. Go down and find a few authentic primordial world items." Hearing the boatman say that, Long Tianxing took the willow branch and infused it with spirit energy. The willow branches opened up, giving off a gentle light that enveloped Long Tianxing. A whirlpool suddenly appeared on the calm surface of the water. A giant hand reached out from the whirlpool, lightly held Long Tianxing, then slowly retracted. "It's your turn." The boatman looked at Gu Qingshan. "What list are you here for?" Gu Qingshan cupped his fists and bowed. "I have achieved the sword list." The ferryman looked at Gu Qingshan from head to toe and said, "You don't even have a sword." Gu Qingshan smiled bitterly. "It was broken during the battle." "Oh, broken? How broken is it?" the boatman asked. "Apart from the hilt, it's all broken." Gu Qingshan told him the truth. "Ah, if that's the case, then you're not just for show after all." The boatman's eyes lit up. He turned around and pushed the boat forward at high speed. "Just wait. The sword list is a bit far, and you're wounded all over. Why don't you rest for a bit?" the boatman said. "Thank you." Gu Qingshan sat down on the wooden plank, silently meditated and waited. He was trying his best to adjust his body, gathering spirit energy and slowly dispelling his fatigue. Whether or not he'll be able to save Gong Sunji and Ning Yuechan all depends on this list. Gu Qingshan was recalling Hundred Flowers Fairy's legendary past. Remembering Hundred Flowers Fairy's actions, he couldn't help but feel speechless. After a while, a thick fog started to gather above the river. Something flew towards him and stabbed into the wooden plank in front of Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan opened his eyes. A sword stabbed into the ground in front of him. In the thick fog, the boatman's figure slowly disappeared. "Pick up the sword. The test has begun." The boatman's voice came from afar. "Yes." Gu Qingshan picked up the sword and stood up. "I will control my cultivation at Foundation Establishment Realm," the boatman continued. "Only by finding my position in the fog will you be qualified to take the sword list. The test just now doesn't count." Gu Qingshan asked. "It does, but the requirement for the sword list is a bit higher. After all, it's swordsmanship. I can't just let anyone take the sword list." "Fine," Gu Qingshan sighed. "Begin," the boatman said. As soon as he said so, his presence disappeared without a trace. What a wondrous aura concealment technique. Gu Qingshan praised, then looked at the sword in her hand. This is a very normal sword, made entirely from wrought iron, but it's easy to hold. Weapons are divided into sharp, treasured, spirit, mystic, and Tao according to their level of sophistication. There's also a grade above that, but they're rare items that normal people can't even hope to get their hands on. But the sword in Gu Qingshan's hand is only a sharp weapon. This kind of sword can only be used as a backup. If she meets a real enemy, she'll have to be careful not to be broken by their weapon. "Senior, you've made a mistake," Gu Qingshan smiled and said. No one answered. Gu Qingshan slowly spoke. "You shouldn't have given me a sword." The sword in his hand moved. A single swing, manifesting over 100 sword phantoms in the blink of an eye. Gu Qingshan's sword presence was like a gentle breeze. Gentle, nimble, and irresistible. "Wind slash!" he shouted. All the phantoms split apart and struck the wooden boat at the same time. In a split second, the wooden boat was cut to pieces, followed by the spirit energy in the sword chi, turning into a wind that whistled through the fog. After a single strike, the entire wooden boat was gone. Only the place where Gu Qingshan was standing was left with a floating wooden plank, still supporting him on the river. The sound of someone stepping on water could be heard from afar. As long as a foundation establishment realm middle stage cultivator doesn't have a wind elemental root, they don't have the ability to fly. Gu Qingshan held his sword, pointing straight at that place. "Senior, I found you." His sword trembled, causing a sudden gust of wind to howl. Ki, 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 ki. The sound of countless parrying could be heard. Wind/'s specialty is its speed. As soon as Gu Qingshan's sword moved, sword chi covered the entire area, making it impossible for the other party to dodge. Silence. After a while, a smiling voice came from the fog. "What a clever youngster. I like him." Following these words, a violent fluctuation of spiritual power suddenly erupted from that place. An intense spirit pressure continued to rise. Foundation establishment peak, golden core peak. This spirit pressure continued all the way to rejuvenation realm before slowly stabilizing. The ferryman flew over and grabbed Gu Qingshan's shoulder. "You've passed the test. Follow me to Baihua Palace." He reached out with his other hand and quickly formed a hand seal. "100 flowers bloom," the ferryman shouted. A few moments later, countless runes appeared from the void of space. As Gu Qingshan glanced over them, she was shocked. Even Gong Sun Ji wouldn't be able to create a teleportation formation in the air without the help of a formation plate. Chapter 61. In the void of space, all the runes were glowing brightly. The warp formation had been completed. Looking at the time, it only took 2 breaths worth of time. Every single warp formation at the front line was created by the Holy Gate, a sect that specializes in formations. Every single warp formation took at least a few dozen days to complete and required 7 to 8 cultivators to do it at the same time. Comparing the two, the difference was like heaven and earth. The runes flashed. The ferryman and Gu Qingshan quickly disappeared. Glazed tiles, red brick walls. The city towers were stacked on top of each other, with carved beams and painted rafters. Baihua Royal City, like a heavenly palace. In the royal city, there was a large green jade screen. A normal person wouldn't even reach 3% of the screen's height if they stood under it. In front of the green jade screen, Gu Qingshan and the ferryman appeared. A palace maid carrying a long scroll walked over and bowed to the boatman. "Is this the person who wants to try for the sword ranking today?" the maid asked. "Yes," the ferryman answered. "Only one today?" the maid continued to ask. "Those people's sword chi isn't righteous. They won't be able to do anything if they enter the palace. They'll only pollute the spirit energy here," the ferryman answered. "All right, I've brought them here. Do as you see fit." After saying so, the ferryman disappeared without a trace. The maid seemed to be used to seeing this, so she turned to Gu Qingshan and asked, "Are you here to try for the sword ranking?" "That's right." Gu Qingshan quickly bowed. The maid looked at him. Seeing his outstanding appearance, bright eyes, and respectful attitude, she was a bit pleased. "Very well." The maid took out an incense burner and lit a stick of incense. She gave the scroll in her hand to Gu Qingshan and said, "Go in. If you can pass the test within 1 incense's worth of time, you'll be qualified to try for the sword ranking." Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised and asked, "The ferryman has already been tested twice. There's another test?" The maid answered, "Yes." "Very well then." Gu Qingshan nodded. "Another test. They haven't even seen the sword ranking yet, and this is already the 3rd test. If it was any other sword cultivator with a bad temper, they might have been displeased or even angry at this moment. However, Gu Qingshan was quite patient when it came to asking for help. Not to mention, he was reborn. In his previous life, he knew very well the temperament of the 100 Flowers Fairy. Gu Qingshan silently received the scroll and infused her spirit energy into it. "Huh!" The scroll fell to the ground, but Gu Qingshan was nowhere to be seen. The palace maid picked up the painting and placed it on a mahogany table. She murmured softly, "His temperament is not bad." Inside the scroll, a scholar stood opposite Gu Qing-shan. The scholar politely clasped his hands towards Gu Qing-shan and said, "This swordsmanship of mine was passed down through my family. Normal cultivators wouldn't even be able to parry it, but I feel like there are still a few flaws. Please take a look and help me find out what's wrong." "Please," Gu Qing-shan returned the greeting. "Then I'll begin. Don't worry, I'll suppress my spirit energy to Qi training stage 7. That'll make it easier for you to fight," the scholar said. "Thank you," Gu Qing-shan replied. The scholar smiled and took out a sword. As he drew the sword, his aura changed. A frenzied roar came from the scholar's mouth. "Kill, kill, 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 kill. There is nothing in this world that cannot be killed." The sword suddenly moved. The scholar's figure was drowned in the rain of sword chi. The scholar and his sword turned into a frenzied blur, quickly approaching Gu Qing-shan. Wind slash. Gu Qing-shan grabbed the void of space with her hand. The sharp-grade sword appeared in her hand. The ferryman left so quickly that he didn't even put his sword away. Perhaps he took a liking to him and purposely kept it. "Kai-shan, 5th strike." Gu Qing-shan uttered a shout, raised her sword, and slashed downwards. Kai-shan's style is heavy and slow, while the scholar's sword was as fast as a blur, so fast that you couldn't even see it clearly. One slow, one fast, the two swords suddenly clashed. Bam! The scholar was sent flying along with his sword, crashing into the wall, then fell to the ground. How strange! Why did that happen? The scholar didn't seem defeated at all. Instead, he seemed excited. Gu Qing-shan lowered her sword. "From what I know about swordsmanship, I believe that there is only a single strike." The scholar was surprised. "Only a single strike? Which strike?" Gu Qing-shan replied, "The strike that can kill at the time, can kill at the time." The scholar chewed on his words, then slowly repeated himself. "That's right, in the blink of an eye, you have too many strikes. Although this will make the other party's eyes blur, you'll also have more openings," Gu Qing-shan patiently explained. These are all swordsmanship insights that Gu Qing-shan gained from fighting demons, risking his life countless times, and risking his own blood as the price. To save Gongsun Ji and Ning Yuechan, for his own survival, he has to fully display his swordsmanship talent. 100 Flowers Fairy's eyes are the highest in the world. As a great sword saint, Gu Qing-shan's eyes and experience go without saying. Although there's still a bit of a gap between her and a sainted realm cultivator like 100 Flowers Fairy, she's still close to 100 Flowers Fairy. Right now, the system seal has been undone, so Gu Qing-shan's swordsmanship has been restored. However, there are still a lot of sword strikes that require soul points to awaken. This is also the system's way of protecting him. Some of the more powerful sword strikes, even just thinking about it, will cause damage to Gu Qing-shan's Qi training realm soul vessel. If his cultivation is too low, he won't be able to endure this damage, so he can only do it step by step. The scholar stood still for a bit, then swung his sword again. This time, his strikes were a lot slower. Each strike was still as fast as lightning, but at the same time, there's only one strike. The fewer sword strikes he has to use, the more powerful his sword is. Simple, direct, full force. The sword's aura is becoming sharper and sharper. While performing his sword strikes, the scholar muttered, "Wrong, wrong. So I've always been pursuing speed and complexity. Even my direction was wrong." Gu Qing-shan glanced at him, then stepped forward with her sword and exchanged a few dozen strikes with him. "Huh!" the scholar shouted and suddenly put his sword away. He solemnly clasped his fist and thanked her. "Fellow Tao Seeker, your words have enlightened me. You've passed my test. Thank you." Gu Qing-shan clasped her fist in return. Outside the painting, the maid seemed to sense something and smiled. This vacuum lightning slash technique, to think that someone would slow down and use it, quite the ingenuity. She glanced at the incense stick. Only 10% of it has been burned. It was now that the maid was a bit interested. She continued to look at the painting. Inside the painting, the scholar nodded. His figure slowly faded away. Another cultivator appeared in front of Gu Qing-shan. This was a monk, wielding a sword with a confused look in his eyes. "My question is to ask the sword heart." The monk blankly stared at the sword in his hand and said, "Please," Gu Qing-shan replied. Using the sword to kill living beings. Even if living beings enter the cycle of reincarnation, they won't be able to get rid of their delusions and obsessions, instead becoming the cause of karma in the future. If that's the case, why not kill living beings? Why not use the sword? May I ask, benefactor, how does a person who uses the sword feel? The monk asked. Good question. Gu Qingshan's expression became serious. If this question is answered too deeply, it'll destroy his Tao heart. The two of them standing there and discussing Tao in a friendly manner is actually much more dangerous than killing their way through a horde of demons. If Gu Qingshan is shaken by the question, his Tao heart will also shatter. Chapter 62. The monk paused and said proudly, "For decades, I've collected all the sword intent in the world, and finally came up with two answers. This kind of thing is based on one's own will. How can there be an answer?" Gu Qingshan disagreed. The monk waved his hand and said, "Almsgiver, don't underestimate my answer. These are the sayings of sword cultivators for the past 10,000 years. I'm all ears," Gu Qingshan said calmly. The monk shook his head and said, "The first saying is, no matter what he does, I will slash him with my sword until a new heaven and earth is created, teaching all living beings to listen to my will. The second saying is, cultivation is like rowing a boat against the current. The same goes for swordsmanship. Whoever obstructs my path of swordsmanship will be my mortal enemy. Even if it's the heavens, I will slash them to show you." Gu Qingshan listened and pondered. The monk bowed and said, "These two sayings are the true meaning of sword cultivators. What do you say, almsgiver? Please elaborate, almsgiver." Gu Qingshan accepted the bow and thought for a while before saying, "The sword has nothing to do with living beings. It only concerns one's own will." The monk was startled and asked, "Why do you say so?" Gu Qingshan said, "If the heart is hesitant, the sword will be sluggish. If the heart is free of worries, the sword will be free of obstacles." The monk shook his head and said, "Almsgiver, don't beat around the bush. Please answer my question directly. Seems like I'll have to see for myself." Gu Qingshan sighed and calmed down. He said, "What I mean is, if you want to kill, don't think so much." The monk did not understand. Gu Qingshan said, "If you want to save living beings, save them with the sword. If you want to kill living beings, kill them with the sword. If you think too much and dawdle, you won't be able to do anything. Instead, you will easily become a demon." The monk was stunned. Gu Qingshan added, "When you really use the sword, you will be in a life and death situation. One wrong move, and you will be doomed eternally. At that time, you must eliminate all thoughts, be invulnerable, not be disturbed by anything, and only have one heart." "What is your heart?" the monk asked. Gu Qingshan sternly said, "Murderous intent." "Umipa, benefactor, you will definitely commit grave sins in the future." The monk put his palms together. "You've already picked up your sword. Isn't it hypocritical to talk about sins?" Gu Qingshan said in a carefree manner, "Kindness must be repaid, and hatred must be repaid. The world is just like this. If one cares too much about sin, his sword will be restrained in every aspect. How can he be considered a sword cultivator?" The monk was momentarily speechless. Outside the scroll, the palace maid suddenly pursed her lips. She took out a misty communication talisman. "Well said, old bald donkey. You're using words to block me. Let's see how you're going to respond now." As the maid spoke, she activated the spirit power in her hand. The communication talisman suddenly turned into a flame and flew into the sky. The palace maid's eyes flickered, and she murmured softly, "This kid seems to have killed his way out of the demons. But as for the specifics, we'll have to wait until he successfully enters the list." She casually formed a hand seal. Gu Qingshan jumped out from the scroll. "You passed just like that?" Gu Qingshan asked. The palace maid answered, I passed. Very well. That monk seems to be a bit unconvinced. If I keep talking, I might break his Tao heart." "That wouldn't be good," Gu Qingshan nodded. Hearing that, the palace maid's mood improved a lot and smiled. "Originally, I had prepared a few more tests, but I've suddenly decided to let you try the sword list right now." Gu Qingshan was overjoyed. Thank you very much. He didn't dare to say anything else. The palace maid smiled as she walked in front of the green jade screen, put her hand on it, and said, "Inside this screen, there's a great desolate sword array, great desolate sword array." Gu Qingshan was shocked. His expression became serious. In the past life, he had never been to Bai Hua country, so he only heard a lot of things about Hundred Flowers Fairy after the fact. The sword array in front of him came from the Great Desolate Era, so Gu Qingshan had never heard of it before. That era belonged to divinities. According to the fragmented written records, the power of divinities wasn't something a cultivator could go against. So every item left behind from the Great Desolate Era contained great power. It was an extremely prosperous era, but the disappearance of the entire era is still a mystery, even now. In just a single year, all the divinities disappeared without a trace. It was like history was cut in half overnight. It wasn't until 5 years after the game started that the first divinity was summoned by a player in an accident. The palace maid continued. What made Immortal Eminence confused was that even though this sword array was subdued by her, she still couldn't find the real sword spirit. Your task is to enter the sword array and find the sword spirit. Immortal Eminence subdued this sword array? Gu Qingshan suddenly asked. Can you tell me, how did Immortal Eminence subdue it? The palace maid was a bit surprised, then answered. This was a birthday gift from Xianyuan Tianzuan to Immortal Eminence. Immortal Eminence immediately placed a seal on it and subdued it. One of the 3 saints, Xianyuan Tianzuan? Birthday gift? Gu Qingshan had a strange expression on her face. The palace maid answered. That's right. Very well. I'll go in and try. Since Gu Qingshan had an idea, she felt a bit more confident. The palace maid nodded, formed a hand seal, and pointed at the green jade screen. The green jade screen shook, letting out a blinding 7-colored light. From the void of space, the silhouettes of immortal beasts appeared one after another. Heavenly music played, colorful clouds gathered, covering the air above the green jade screen. A figure appeared on top of the screen. The face couldn't be seen clearly, but this figure was definitely dressed like a cultivator from the age of old. The mysterious man raised his hand and pointed at the sky. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the sky, and the chaotic space turbulence raged in the crack. The figure pointed at the ground again, causing the earth to split open. The 4 seas boiled. All living beings lost their life force. 2 simple points. The world itself changed. This is beyond any cultivator's imagination. Even a saint wouldn't be able to do such a thing. Such a spectacular scene completely outshines any cultivator of the current era. The palace maid was shaken, thought for a bit, then reminded, after you go in, be careful. Even if you can't find the weapon spirit, you can't forget your manners. Seeing Gu Qingshan's confused expression, the palace maid patiently explained. Inside the screen, there are 11 silhouettes of divinities. Each of them contains their memories and personalities from when they were alive. You absolutely cannot offend them. Otherwise, even I won't be able to save you. Gu Qingshan looked at the strange scene on the green jade screen and replied. Understood. The palace maid's hand seal changed again as a 7-colored light appeared from the screen and covered Gu Qingshan. A dignified voice came. Junior, you can enter only after you light the incense. Hearing that, Gu Qingshan looked at the palace maid. The palace maid nodded. Gu Qingshan could only light the incense, bow, and enter the door. As soon as he disappeared, the palace maid's expression changed from the relaxed one before to solemnly stare at the green jade screen. Chapter 63. Suddenly, Gu Qingshan's vision blurred as he found himself falling from the sky into a large hall. He stood up and carefully looked around. That's right, this was a typical ancient building. On both sides of the hall, there were 2 rows of statues, each of which were cultivators from the age of old with different postures and expressions. The 10 cultivators from the age of old were all different. The only thing they had in common was a sword. Sword cultivators from the age of old, Gu Qingshan muttered. As the statues saw her, they all turned to look at Gu Qingshan. Junior, why haven't you greeted us yet? One of the statues shouted. Gu Qingshan smiled and bowed. then looked deeper into the hall. At the very front of the hall, a divinity was worshipped. Gu Shan walked in front of the divinity statue and carefully looked at it. This was a golden-armored divinity, holding a mountain peak in his left hand and a strange sword in his right hand, his expression solemn and dignified. Gu Shan's gaze stopped at the sword. The sword was completely black, with 5 deep scars evenly distributed on the blade, giving off an indescribable feeling of fear. This was a divine sigil. Divine sigil was even more advanced than runes, a manifestation of nature itself. A single scratch on it could cause the world itself to change. Gu Shan seriously looked at it, then looked behind the divinity statue. There was a wall as tall as 5 people, carved with thick and heavy colors on it. As Gu Shan looked closer, these murals depicted the heroic deeds of the cultivators from the age of old who were led by the divinity to fight against the demons. The divinity that helped the cultivators fight against the demons was the divinity that sat on the main seat. At the end of each of the murals, there wasn't a single one that didn't end with the cultivators sacrificing themselves to win against the demons. Taking a closer look, these cultivators from the age of old looked exactly like the 10 statues inside the hall. 10 cultivators from the age of old sacrificed themselves 10 times, all for the sake of humanity's survival. Truly worthy of respect. 100 Flowers Fairy has always respected people like this. No wonder she told me to be careful and not be rude. Perhaps she had done the same thing herself. At the center of all the murals was a one-eyed monster. It was standing on a black cloud, holding a city in its hand and sending it into its mouth. Around the monster, 10 sword cultivators from the age of old were led by the divinity to surround it. Every sword cultivator had a solemn expression on their faces. They held their swords in one hand and formed a strange hand seal with the other, pointing at the monster. Looking at this scene, they were trying to seal the monster. This painting occupied the largest area, and it was densely covered with divine runes. Logically speaking, these divine runes were all used to seal monsters. Gu Shan looked at the monster. The monster seemed to have sensed something. It turned its single eye and stared at Gu Shan. Looks like he's sealed in the murals, Gu Shan muttered. Gu Shan took a few more glances, then turned around and walked back to the first statue. This statue depicted a square-faced, middle-aged cultivator, wearing a frosty white robe. The sword in his hand also gave off a chilling aura. He was the one who questioned Gu Shan earlier. Gu Shan bowed again and respectfully asked, "May I ask how Senior sacrificed himself?" The statue looked up. "Sacrificing myself for the lives of 100,000 living beings. It's worth it," Gu Shan asked. "Can you tell me more about it?" "This humble one can also admire Senior's elegance." The middle-aged cultivator looked down at Gu Shan and said, "My soul vessel is currently trapping the demon inside the murals, so I have no time to tell you in detail." Gu Shan looked at his sword, only to see 2 small words engraved at the point where the hilt and blade connected. Ning Shuang. Gu Shan silently nodded, then asked, "This humble one is also a sword cultivator. May I ask what sword style Senior is using?" "This way, I can also admire Senior's elegance. You can at least tell me," the middle-aged cultivator proudly answered. "Ghostly Flame Heaven Origin sword style." Gu Shan clasped his fist. "This humble one understands saying so." He walked to the next statue, bowed again, and respectfully asked, "May I ask how Senior sacrificed himself?" The statue depicted a handsome young man. Hearing that, he answered, "Using my own strength to kill millions of demons, then died of exhaustion." "Can you tell me more about it?" "This humble one can also admire Senior's elegance." The handsome young man also looked at Gu Shan and said, "This humble one's soul vessel is currently trapping the great demon, so I have no time to tell you in detail." Gu Shan nodded. "This humble one is also a sword cultivator. May I ask what sword style Senior used?" The handsome young man answered, "Stainless holy sword style." Gu Shan suddenly said, "If that's the case, Senior must be a rare lightning-type sword cultivator." "How admirable!" The handsome young man looked at her and said, "As long as you know." Hearing that, Gu Shan completely calmed down. He walked towards the front of the hall and stood in front of the divinity statue. A bow suddenly appeared in his hand. Gu Shan slowly drew an arrow, pulled the bowstring, and pointed it at the divinity statue. The divinity statue suddenly opened its eyes and shouted with a thunderous voice, "How dare you? Thou art but a mere mortal." Daring to draw an arrow at this divinity, quickly kneeled down and kowtow to apologize. "Otherwise I will send thee to reincarnation." Gu Shan smiled and replied, "I am a demon. I came here this time to release the monster on the mural." The 10 sword cultivator statues all shouted. Each of them swung their swords as overwhelming sword chi rose from their bodies. "Monster, I will take your life. Damn demon, you're dead. Die." Their voices were loud enough to shake the sky, about to unleash their peerless swordsmanship in the next second. Outside the green jade screen, the maid's expression changed, saying, "What's wrong with this young man?" Her hands quickly formed a hand seal, forming a seal in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, as long as she infuses her spirit energy into the hand seal, the spell will be activated. But right at that moment, the maid had a thought and didn't infuse her spirit energy. She stared at the green jade screen without blinking for a while, then suddenly showed a strange expression. Inside the hall, Gu Shan waited for a while, but the sword cultivators still didn't attack. "Damn it!" the square-faced, middle-aged cultivator shouted. "All of my spirit energy was used to seal the demon. There's only a sliver of my soul vessel left outside. I can't kill this monster." "Me too, me too." The sword cultivators all sighed in sorrow. Gu Shan looked at the divinity statue in the middle of the hall, pulled the bow into a crescent shape, and let go. Shah! The arrow went past the ear of the divinity statue and struck the mural, turning half of the wall into rubble. The sword cultivators all went silent. The hall fell into an eerie silence. Gu Shan picked up another arrow without changing his expression, pulled the bow again, and aimed at the divinity statue. "Sorry about that. My hand slipped just now. I'll definitely aim properly this time," he apologized. The divinity statue said nothing. Gu Shan pulled the bow to its fullest and asked, "Don't you want to say something? After all, you won't have a chance to say anything anymore," the divinity statue suddenly asked. "Aren't you afraid that I'll release the peerless demon?" Gu Shan replied, "A bunch of swindlers. I don't believe the demon they're suppressing would be that strong," the divinity statue asked. "What are you trying to do by slandering ancient sword cultivators like this?" "You're forcing me to say it. But if I say it, you won't be able to keep up the act." Gu Shan smiled. The divinity statue said nothing. Chapter 64. This was the palace maid's voice. Obviously, she was watching this place from the outside. Gu Shan nodded, saying, "There are many cultivators who study sword styles, but very few of them have the time to study the names of sword styles, because doing so doesn't help their cultivation at all. And I, coincidentally, am a sword cultivator who took the wrong path. So I've learned a bit about the names of sword styles." The statues around them didn't say anything, remaining eerily silent. Gu Shan continued, "In sword styles, the stainless sword style is the wind. Smiting is the lightning. A sword cultivator who uses the stainless holy sword style must have a wind elemental root." I purposefully said he was a lightning sword cultivator, but he didn't refute, so obviously he doesn't even know what's going on here. That's the first loophole. Gu Shan couldn't help but laugh. As for the sword cultivator wearing the water protective robe and wielding the frost sword, he's even more adorable. Adorable? What do you mean? The palace maid's voice came. His sword style is Silent Flame Heaven Essence. The so-called Silent Flame is the highest level of the Ghost Realm's Endless Flame. Obviously, it requires fire spirit energy to unleash. But his sword is a second-stage water frost sword. If he were to use it, the water and fire would clash. Wouldn't his spirit energy flow reverse and become demonic? But their presence is quite impressive, and the things they carry are also real, but sacrificing for humanity. Why can't you tell me the details? The deity statue went silent for a bit, then suddenly sighed. "There's a reason for this. Listen to me slowly. While he was talking, he was signaling the sword cultivators with his eyes. Suddenly, they all formed a hand seal and shouted, "Lesser Void Warp." Countless runes appeared on the floor of the hall. "You're lucky this time. We'll meet again," the deity statue laughed. Gu Shan looked at the statue of divinity with a pitiful expression and said nothing. A second later, a loud and angry female voice came. "Xin Yuan Tianzuan, you old bastard. You dare to use fake goods to exchange for my 100-flower jade brew. Next time I see you, I'll break your legs." Following that, the runes on the floor all went out. A twisted black hole suddenly appeared on the ceiling of the hall. The statue and the 10 fake sword cultivators didn't even have time to resist before they were sucked in. Then, the world spun, and Gu Shan also left the hall. Gu Shan's feet landed on solid ground. The palace maid was still standing there, but the huge green jade screen was gone. "Congratulations, you solved the sword list problem," the palace maid said expressionlessly. Gu Shan knew that the other party was in a bad mood, so she didn't say anything and just cupped her fists and bowed. The palace maid pondered for a while and was about to speak when a fire talisman flew from the sky and landed in front of her. The palace maid pointed. A voice came from the fire talisman. "AI, why are you angry, fellow Taoist? During that period of time, I gambled quite fiercely and mortgaged all the good things. I had no other choice but to resort to this method. However, I have a good thing that I can compensate you with. It's the ancient wonderful sound sex heavenly sound magic staff. I guarantee that it's genuine. If it's a fake, then let the 5 thunders of the heavens strike me." The palace maid listened with a gloomy expression. Only after the person inside the fire talisman swore an oath did her expression become a bit better. Cultivators can't violate their oaths. Otherwise, they'll be punished by the heavens. Since the person inside the fire talisman said that, it seems that this thing is real. The ancient wonderful sound sect, that was once a famous sect. If this thing was real, then it would be quite eye-catching. The palace maid snorted, then told the fire talisman, "Don't do it again." Then she let go of the fire talisman and let it fly away. When she looked at Gu Shan again, the expression on her face was a lot better. "Come, follow me to see the immortal sovereign." Yes, the 2 of them, one in front and one behind, went through a long corridor, passed through layers of palaces, and arrived at the 100 Flowers Palace's main hall. "Report that the sword list was taken today. Let's see what the immortal sovereign has to say," the palace maid said. Yes, hearing that, one of the 2 palace maids quickly went into the main hall, then quickly came back out. "The immortal sovereign just happens to have some time now. She wants to see the person who took the list." The palace maid looked at Gu Shan and gestured with her hand. "Let's go see the immortal sovereign. Then I'll be going now." Gu Shan clasped his fist and said. The palace maid smiled and said, "I need to remind you, you can't say a single lie in front of the immortal sovereign. If you have something to say, say it. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences." "Thank you for your advice," Gu Shan said. The palace maid nodded, then stepped aside to let him pass. As Gu Shan walked into the main hall, his mind was thinking a lot. As soon as he entered 100 Flowers country, he already noticed something. That was something that Bai Hua Fairy had done, a famous, shocking thing. Why would Bai Hua, immortal sovereign, do such a thing? Could it be that she's thinking of a way to break through to Sainted Realm? Before he could think any further, he was already standing in the middle of the main hall. The main hall was cold and empty. A light breeze carried a faint fragrance. As Gu Shan took a deep breath, his soul vessel felt refreshed. Following the direction of the fragrance, he saw that on top of a high platform in the main hall, there were hundreds of thousands of different flowers carved from immortal jade. Looking carefully, that's not right. This entire high platform was made from immortal jade. Immortal jade is a top-tier spirit stone, ranked above the upper, middle, and lower tiers. They've always been priceless, an existence that can only be found by chance. A single immortal jade the size of a fist can be used to support a large-sized defensive formation for a year, enough for an ascended realm cultivator to absorb spirit energy 100 times, enough to buy a small sect. And in this main hall, there was a high platform made from immortal jade, on top of which were carved all kinds of strange flowers and plants. In the middle of all these flowers and plants, a large flower was in full bloom, revealing a throne in the middle of its stamen. The 10,000 flowers throne. Gu Qing Shan silently muttered. This is the holy throne of the 100 Flowers Fairy, something that countless players are jealous of, but don't dare to touch. Sitting on the throne was a woman, wearing a bright green feather dress, her face covered by a thin veil. "Were you the one who made it to the sword ranking?" the woman asked, her voice like the chirping of birds. "It was this humble one," Gu Qingshan answered. "Your swordsmanship knowledge is quite good. Your observation skills are also decent. Helping this saint pick out a fake, that's a great merit," 100 Flowers Fairy said. "Yes," Gu Qingshan answered. "This is the 100 Flowers Fairy. No one has ever seen her face. She's one of the 3 saints. Who would dare to take off her veil?" Sainted Realm, in the past life, was a realm that players couldn't even reach. Not only because of the astronomical amount of EXP, but also because you can't just rely on the game system to break through to Sainted Realm. You have to reach that realm yourself. Apparently, there were some other conditions, but Gu Qingshan still hasn't found them. In the past life, Gu Qingshan was also a top-tier Ascended Realm cultivator, but still couldn't find a way to break through to Sainted Realm. Not a single player could. Towards 100 Flowers Fairy, he's very impressed. Chapter 65. Very well. Since this saint didn't ask anything, you shouldn't have said anything. This is by Hua Palace's rule. You've done quite well. Which sector are you from? I'm a vagrant cultivator. You don't look like it, but since you're here, do you have any wishes? Bai Hua Fairy sat on the throne of 10,000 flowers on the high platform and asked. Gu Qingshan clasped her fist and said, "May the saints save our lives, save our lives. Are you sick or about to die?" 100 Flowers Fairy casually asked. For her, this kind of thing is nothing more than a wave of her hand. So as soon as she heard the word save, she felt a bit annoyed. "No, there's a traitor at the front line. General Gongsun and Saintess Ning Yuechan are surrounded by demons. About to die, they found another world, so the demons are going all out to take their lives. General Gongsun sent me away, so I couldn't ask for help anywhere else. So I could only come here to take the board." 100 Flowers Fairy opened her eyes, sat up straight, and her expression became serious. "Another world, traitor? What you're saying, is it true? You should know that deceiving this saint to help you won't be able to bear the consequences," she asked in a low voice. Gu Qingshan answered, "It's definitely true. Do you have your badge?" 100 Flowers Fairy asked. "I do." Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised. What's the point of asking about the badge right now? "Take it out," 100 Flowers Fairy said. Yes, Gu Qingshan took off the bronze badge on her waist and held it in her hand. 100 Flowers Fairy waved her hand. The bronze badge flew across the hall and landed in her hand. 100 Flowers Fairy infused her spirit energy into the badge, causing it to shine brightly as a line of text appeared in the air. Vanguard, Gu Qingshan. There's no mistaking the badge, and it formed a natural connection with the young man in front of her. Such a big thing, could it be true? 100 Flowers Fairy's expression became slightly more serious. She pointed at the bronze token, and it floated in front of her. Divine skill, void spirit seeking. 100 Flowers Fairy quickly formed a hand seal. Bang! A huge commotion came from the void. A streak of light smashed into the void, creating a black hole the size of 2 people. Silhouettes of people appeared from the black hole. That was the aura of all the living beings on the bronze waist token in the past. In the pit for the dead, countless corpses of soldiers showed a thick gray color. In the military camp, Zhao Lu's image appeared, but around him was a thick gray aura of death, indicating that he was the same as the corpses in the pit. His aura had already returned to the cycle of reincarnation. Faceless giant, the human-faced bird, demonic python. Countless faces appeared until Gongsun Ji and Ning Yuechan appeared. Next up is the endless sea of demons in Shunwu World. The 5 cultivators were surrounded by the aura of death. Only Lung Tianxing's body was still emitting an icy aura. Seeing that, 100 Flowers Fairy nodded, saying, going through so many battles, surviving all the way to Baihua Immortal Country, even making it to the top of the sword's list, truly worthy of praise, Gu Qing said. Please save them, Saint Hundred Flowers Fairy said. Don't say that. Everything must be done according to this saint's rules. She reached out her jade-like fingers and quickly calculated. A few moments later, Hundred Flowers Fairy's expression calmed down, saying, I've just done a divination. They won't die within 15 minutes, the hardest of the 6 arts, divination. After living 2 lives, this is the first time Gu Qing has ever seen someone perform a real divination. In the past life, it's not like she hasn't seen people perform divination before, but those were all pre-planned, used to trick people. According to the game settings, the hardest of the 6 arts is divination. Because of that, the cultivation world has given birth to countless scammers. Even among the native cultivators of the cultivation world, there were quite a few who were fooled. While Gu Qing was thinking, Hundred Flowers Fairy spoke again. Hundred Flowers Fairy said, although you made it to the top of the sword's list, you didn't use a sword from start to finish inside the green jade screen. That's against my rules, not using a sword to make it to the top of the sword's list. If everyone did that, wouldn't my Baihua list be a mess? Because of you. Because of that, I can't count you as having made it to the top of the sword's list. She clapped her hands, summoning 2 maids without a sound. These are my sword maids. I'll have them suppress their cultivation to Chi Training Stage 7. You'll have to fight once. If you can't win against them within 15 minutes, this saint will confirm that you failed to make it to the top. If that's the case, this saint will notify the front line and let them deal with it. This saint won't do it myself, Gu Qing hurriedly said. The great cultivators at the front line might not be able to save them. Hundred Flowers Fairy squints her eyes, saying, if you want me to do it myself, you must make it to the top of the Baihua list. This is my rule. No one can change it. Saying so, the 2 sword maids silently stepped forward, bowed, and slowly drew their swords. Gu Qing calculated the time. From the time he left Gongsun Ji and Ning Yuechan, it's already been half a day. In other words, Gongsun Ji's 10-death ceiling formation is about to reach its limit. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at the void, taking out the iron sword. Hundred Flowers Fairy is a very temperamental person. She has her own way of doing things. No one could say anything about it. If you don't follow her rules, if you don't make her happy, she won't help you even if there's a hole in the sky. It can't be helped. I have to fight. Please. Gu Qing took a deep breath, raised her sword, and spoke seriously. The 2 sword maids exchanged looks, raised their swords, and attacked. 2 swords, one long and one short, one fast and one slow, complementing each other's weaknesses. Their attacks connected. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of Gu Qing. This kind of coordination, this kind of swordsmanship, there's nothing fancy about it. There's no sense of morality or elegance. Everything they do is to take the enemy's life, simple to the extreme. Seeing their level of coordination, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they're using 2 sets of sword styles at the same time. Nice, Gu Qing praised. His sword also moved. Clang, clang, 2 clangs. The 2 sword maids took a few steps back, showing a surprised expression. Wind slash, no, mountain breaker. They were hesitant, not sure. Gu Qing caught up. The sword in her hand seemed slow, but is actually fast, slashing 5 times in a row. The 2 sword maids parried and retreated 7 to 8 steps back. This is wind slash. No, it's mountain breaker's sword hammer. The 2 of them spoke at the same time. They silently used their sword styles, trying their best to attack, but their coordination is already gone. The sword light came straight at them. Just as they were about to raise their swords, they suddenly felt their hands shake. Their swords were sent flying, landing on the other side of the hall. A gasp of surprise came from the high platform. Alternating sword wills, changing freely, Hundred Flowers Fairy watched with interest, smiling. We didn't lose unjustly. This is a sword style that combines wind slash true meaning and mountain breaker true meaning. Only those who have completely mastered these 2 sword styles would be able to do this from the looks of it. She doesn't seem to care about Gongsun Ji and Ning Yuechan's life or death. Chapter 66. Gu Qing sheathed her sword and clasped her fist. Thanks for letting me when 100 Flowers Fairy stood up from the platform, then casually said, You didn't use your full strength, Gu Shan replied. This humble one doesn't need to. 100 Flowers Fairy lightly landed in front of Gu Shan, saying, That's interesting. She looked at Gu Shan with a burning gaze, saying, I'll give you one chance to prove what you said. How do I prove it? Gu Shan asked. If you use your full strength against me, I'll judge you accordingly, 100 Flowers Fairy replied. This is one of the three saints. Even if Gu Shan was at her peak, she still couldn't win against her. Gu Shan didn't hold back at all, swung her sword, and pointed it straight at 100 Flowers Fairy. Water flow severance. Gu Shan shouted and thrust her sword forward. On the sword phantoms condensed into clusters. In the blink of an eye, the sword phantoms surged forward like a flood. The world became silent. Dong! Blinding sword phantoms appeared from the tip of the sword, then suddenly went out. The entire sword couldn't handle the power of this strike and broke into pieces of metal, falling to the ground, letting out a pleasant clanking sound. Gu Shan was surprised. 100 Flowers Fairy's body moved and returned to the platform. That strike was quite good. Very rare for someone your age, she commented. Although this strike wasn't fully performed, 100 Flowers Fairy's eyes were sharp enough to see through Gu Shan's swordsmanship. She suddenly felt a tinge of appreciation for talent. A sword cultivator without a sword is nothing. Come pick a sword as compensation for your broken sword, 100 Flowers Fairy said. Gu Shan sincerely replied, This sword isn't mine either. It belongs to the old boatman who ferried me here. If your eminence want compensation, please compensate him. 100 Flowers Fairy raised her eyebrow in surprise, feeling different about Gu Shan. Then Gu Shan said, I hope your eminence can save them. Gong Sun Ji and Ning Yuechan aren't in a good situation. 100 Flowers Fairy waved her hand dismissively, saying, No rush, they won't die. Even if they do, I'll pull them back from reincarnation. After she said that, Gu Shan didn't have anything else to say. If Bai Hua Fairy really does have such an ability, then after Gong Sun Ji dies and is revived, does my quest complete or fail? Gu Shan couldn't help but feel conflicted. 100 Flowers Fairy looked at Gu Shan a bit more and said, You don't need to worry. I'll let you pick a sword, so just pick one. A saint word is law. She won't easily change her mind. Yes, thank you, your eminence. Gu Shan could only clasp her fist and say. 100 Flowers Fairy swung her long sleeves. 5 swords fell into the hall, neatly lined up in front of Gu Shan. As Gu Shan looked over, her emotions started to fluctuate. As a sword cultivator, it's been a long time since he saw a trustworthy sword. 100 Flowers Fairy's collection naturally isn't just for show. He stepped forward, carefully choosing his future companions. 100 Flowers Fairy rested her chin on her hand, her bare feet leaning on the throne of 10,000 flowers, showing a look of interest on her face. This young man actually knows how to study the names of sword styles. This kind of strenuous and unrewarding thing is a bit too obscure. No one has ever done it before. What kind of sword would a person like this choose? She silently looked at the scene in front of her, wanting to see what the young man would choose. Gu Shan glanced over the 5 swords, walked straight to the leftmost one, and drew it out. With a clang, sword chi rose to the sky. Weapons can be divided into 5 ranks according to their quality: sharp, treasure, spirit, law, and Tao. Just by holding this sword in her hand, she could already feel the intense killing intent coming from it. Swords with intent are extremely rare. They can be called magic tools. A sword like this is extremely precious. Once it's taken out, many sword cultivators from different sects would go crazy for it. Gu Shan sighed and sheathed the sword. He looked at the other swords. Why not this one? 100 Flowers Fairy asked. Gu Shan glanced at the sword in his hand. It was indeed a good sword. First, it's too precious with my current realm. I can't even protect it, Gu Shan answered. What about second? 100 Flowers Fairy asked. Second, this sword's killing intent is too thick. It'll affect the mood of wielding it, Gu Shan answered. But you said before, wielding a sword only has one heart, the heart to kill. 100 Flowers Fairy didn't let him go. Ah, the heart to kill is my heart, not the sword's heart, Gu Shan continued. I haven't even thought about it yet, but it already has killing intent. Am I going to use it, or is it going to use me? Who knows? One day I'll be enslaved by it and become a killing machine. 100 Flowers Fairy went silent and didn't ask anymore. In reality, the previous owner of this sword was a sword cultivator known as the Human Demon, a sword cultivator who killed countless people in his life. In the end, he attracted the Tianma and died as a result. The second sword in her left hand is completely red, silently standing there as if it's burning. Holding this sword, Gu Shan tried to channel her spirit energy. The sword's blade is immediately covered in burning flames. This is a fire elemental sword, used by a sword cultivator who has awakened fire elemental energy. The sword's power will increase by several times. The third sword is completely black without any light, extremely light when wielded. The blade cuts through the air without making a sound. The fourth sword makes a soul-stealing sound when wielded, able to disturb a person's mind. The fifth sword is a bit longer without a scabbard, so it's a bit heavy to hold, but it's as easy to wield as one's own arm. Gu Shan tried to channel her spirit energy, but the sword doesn't change at all, giving off a sense of steadiness. Holding this sword, Gu Shan actually feels a bit safer. Gu Shan happily takes this sword, bowed to 100 Flowers Fairy, and said, I choose this one. As soon as Gu Shan picked up this sword, 100 Flowers Fairy held her breath. Finally, he chose this sword, stating that this is the sword he wants. Only now did 100 Flowers Fairy sigh in relief. Why didn't you choose the first few swords? 100 Flowers Fairy asked without batting an eyelid. The second sword is suitable for a fire elemental root cultivator. I haven't even awakened my spirit energy yet, so it's not suitable. The third sword is a swordsmanship path. It doesn't fit my swordsmanship style. The fourth sword is quite powerful, but I believe that what a sword cultivator pursues is swordsmanship, not shortcuts, Gu Shan explained. Swords are what he's most interested in, so no matter who asks him, he'll be able to answer them. Hearing that, 100 Flowers Fairy asked again, then why did you choose the fifth sword? This sword is only there to make up the numbers. Among the 5 swords, it's the weakest. How about you choose again? Gu Shan shook his head. This sword suits me the most. There's no need to change it, 100 Flowers Fairy asked. It doesn't have any special characteristics, and no one has ever used it to fight before. Why would you like it? Gu Shan took a look at the War God UI. Sure enough, this sword doesn't have any special characteristics. It's very clean. But Gu Shan had a strange feeling that he definitely doesn't want to miss this sword. With his several dozen years of experience with swords, this sword feels like an extension of his body, or a companion that's connected to his mind. Gu Shan hesitated for a bit, then awkwardly smiled. This sword feels very comfortable in my hand. I don't want to change it. Hearing that, 100 Flowers Fairy couldn't help but feel a bit dazed. In his memories, the voice that had been buried for countless years once again resounded. Ling Er, I spent so much effort to get you these 10 swords. Each one of them is better than the one you have. Why don't you want any of them? The girl smiled. Because no matter how I choose, I still find the one in my hand to be the most comfortable, she continued. A sword is a weapon that will accompany you for the rest of your life if you don't feel comfortable holding it. So what if it's powerful? Right, from now on, try not to come to my place as often as possible. It's best if you don't come here in the near future. Before she could finish the words about to break through, the other person's expression changed and roared. Humph, pretentious bitch, refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. I'll give you one day to consider whether or not you want to be my Dao companion. If you don't, I'll destroy your entire sect. The man turned into wind and left. One day later, several hundred people of the sect were massacred, leaving only the girl. Due to the sect master's protection, she silently left. 100 Flowers Fairy bit her lip. This sword was my personal sword in the past. She looked down at the young man below and muttered, Ah, I'm sorry. Then I'll pick a new one, Gu Shan replied. He was a bit annoyed. What the hell did I do to take the Eminence's sword away? I hope she won't get angry. I'm still waiting for her to save him. It's fine, this saint is currently walking on a different path. I've long since stopped using swords. The fact that you feel comfortable holding it means that it has chosen you. Take it, just treat it well. 100 Flowers Fairy spoke very slowly. I'll also give you the scabbard. She grabbed a scabbard from the void of space, held it in her hand for a while before throwing it over. The scabbard was simple and unadorned, completely black. Gu Qingshan received it and sheathed it. "Thank you, Eminence," Gu Qingshan said. 100 Flowers Fairy blankly sat there for a while, then suddenly spoke. "This sword is called the Earth." "Earth?" Gu Qingshan was surprised. "Yes, the Earth Sword. The Earth can contain all living beings and give birth to all sentient beings, a peerless thaumaturgy of the Grand Tao. So it's called the Earth Sword. This sword weighs 86,370,000 tons. It also has a spirit thaumaturgy. Bear your own weight. The so-called bearing its own weight means that when the sword wielder holds the sword, he will only feel the weight of an ordinary sword. Nothing in the world will have to bear its weight. Only the enemy of the sword wielder will have to face a heavy blow of 86,370,000 gene. 100 Flowers Fairy's gaze drifted away. Her mouth curled into a mocking smirk, saying, "The Earth Sword is our Taoism's 100,000 years of inheritance. It's never been used against enemies. It's extremely precious. It's said that in the age of old, it was able to communicate with the divinities, a sword used to worship heaven and earth." Chapter 67. Hearing that, Gu Qingshan froze in place. Does this sword really have such a great background? I only wanted to pick a weapon that suits me. Why did I end up picking the sword of the venerable of immortals? And how powerful it is. Seeing the saint's reaction, she doesn't seem to be in a bad mood, rather a bit relieved. 100 Flowers Fairy waved her hand. The Earth Sword flew from Gu Qingshan's side to the 10,000 Flowers throne. 100 Flowers Fairy waved her hand to set up a barrier, isolating the entire 10,000 Flowers throne, making it so that Gu Qingshan couldn't see what was happening inside. Stroking the sword, she muttered, "You're so strong. With just you alone, he would be able to win against many opponents. How would he grow?" A voice as heavy as a mountain came from the longsword. "I will seal myself layer by layer. Every time his cultivation level increases, I will release a portion of my power. Only when he reaches the deity transformation realm will he be able to obtain my full power," 100 Flowers Fairy replied. "Then there's no problem. Take care," she said. "You take care as well. Also, what happened all those years ago wasn't your fault." The low voice came. 100 Flowers Fairy wanted to laugh, but couldn't, only saying, "The sex gate is no longer here. Go, create a new history." Hovering in the air, the hilt of the sword pointed at Bai Hua Fairy for a bit, then slowly flew back. Bai Hua Fairy waved her hand and undid the barrier around them. The Earth Sword returned to Gu Qingshan's hand. "This sword's power is too great. I need to prevent others from coveting it. So I've set up a barrier," 100 Flowers Fairy told Gu Qingshan. As if listening to something, she added, "Qi Training Realm. You can use the Earth Sword to strike with 30,000 tons of force. Thank you, Saint." Gu Qingshan nodded to express her gratitude. He knows what she's doing, so he knows that 100 Flowers Fairy is doing this for his own good. If swords were too strong, sword cultivators would naturally rely on them, and it would be hard for them to improve their own skills. Furthermore, a swing of the sword had the power of 30,000 gene. This was already very powerful. Among the weapons of the Qi refining realm, it could be considered as one of the best. The 100 Flowers Fairy looked at the young man, and then looked at the sword in his arms. Suddenly, a thought came to her mind. She stretched out her jade-white hand and formed a seal with one hand. Outside 100 Flower City, a pig disappeared from the field. At the fork of the road, the white goose on the large green rock was still shouting, "Don't push the next one to come up." The next second, the white goose suddenly disappeared, causing a commotion among the waiting cultivators. 100 Flowers Fairy's hand gesture didn't change, and she continued to use her spiritual power. On the river, in a brand new wooden boat, the old boatman disappeared into thin air. 100 Flowers Fairy continued to make hand seals. A palace made in the Flower Palace had vanished without a trace. 100 Flowers Fairy squints her eyes. A second later, countless images flash through her eyes. Quite clever. Just like me when I was young, she muttered. She was 18 years old at the time, stole her senior brother's talisman, entered the scripture library, and unknowingly finished learning the 3 top-level scriptures of the sect. The elders came to punish her, but she used the sect's law. Any disciple who learns the 3 secret scriptures is a candidate for the next sect master, so they can't be humiliated. The elders didn't believe her, so she tried to demonstrate the 3 secret scriptures one by one. At the time, the elders' expressions were especially interesting. Remembering the past, 100 Flowers Fairy's depressed mood was slightly lifted. Looking at Gu Qingshan's performance on the way here, 100 Flowers Fairy was even more satisfied. Gu Qingshan naturally knows what she's doing, but she didn't show it on her face, silently stood there, waiting for her decision. That's right, 100 Flowers Fairy has a divine skill. 10 million clones. Even among the divine skills, this divine skill is a top-notch one. As long as anyone enters by Hua Immortal Country, every person, every animal they meet is an incarnation of 100 Flowers Fairy. The birds in the sky, the citizens on the road, the bailiffs of the government, the waiters and shopkeepers of the taverns, even the hibernating snakes, the ants crawling on the ground under by Hua Immortal Country. They're all her incarnations. Almost every living being is an incarnation of her. In the past life, after she fought against the demons and defeated the entire demon army, she regretfully stepped into the void of space and returned to the cycle of reincarnation. After she left, the entire Baihua country became empty, leaving only a few cultivators behind. It was now that everyone understood, in the entire Baihua Immortal Country, the only ones who aren't her incarnations are her disciples. No one knows why 100 Flowers Fairy is doing this. Because she's already a sainted realm peak, many great cultivators guess that she's trying to find the secret to breaking through to sainted realm. Because of that, many cultivators who come to take the Baihua list, as long as they don't show the slightest bit of behavior that the 100 Flowers Fairy wants, they'll be noticed by the 100 Flowers Fairy. This is also one of the reasons why 100 Flowers Fairy doesn't take in many disciples. Now, I have a more important question I want to ask you, 100 Flowers Fairy said. Gu Qingshan replied, Please ask your excellency. 100 Flowers Fairy evaluated Gu Qingshan from top to bottom, then asked without batting an eyelid, Who else do you have in your family? Why did you join the army? While saying that, 100 Flowers Fairy secretly formed a hand seal inside her sleeve. No lie can escape her eyes. Gu Qingshan didn't think she'd ask this, so in just 1 second, she rejected the idea of lying. 100 Flowers Fairy's incarnation said that I can't lie to her. A saint will always have an unimaginable way to find out the truth. Gu Qingshan thought for a bit, then answered very cleverly. This humble one's parents died in an accident when I was young, so I struggled to survive and grow up alone. Now that the world of demons is in chaos, I joined the army to learn a thing or two, so that I can become stronger, so that I can live on. His words pierced through the 2 worlds, clearly describing his true situation. As 100 Flowers Fairy looked at him, the spirit energy waves from her hand seal didn't show any abnormalities. What he said was so simple, and it was the truth. No one knew that 100 Flowers Fairy was also an orphan. After she became a saint, she hid everything about her past, so that no one could find her weakness through looking into her past. 100 Flowers Fairy's expression softened. Even her eyes showed a bit of intimacy. If that's the case, then you're still an orphan, she purposely asked. This saint is a bit curious. What does it feel like to struggle to survive alone? Although Gu Qingshan was confused as to why the saint would ask such a question, she still answered seriously. This time, he didn't need to rack his brain to think about it. Recalling the countless hardships she went through, Gu Qingshan naturally answered, The good thing about being alone in this world is that you don't need to worry that someone will be sad if you die. 100 Flowers Fairy went silent for a bit, then asked, What are the disadvantages? Gu Qingshan smiled, then answered, There are 2 disadvantages. First, no matter if it's eating, fighting, or going out to cultivate, I'm always the one who's outnumbered. Second, when I see other people celebrating their birthdays, I can't help but want to avoid them. Hearing such normal words, 100 Flowers Fairy couldn't help but clench her hand tightly on the 10,000 Flowers throne. Chapter 68. What Gu Shan said. Hasn't she experienced it herself? She's talented, beautiful, but after her sect was destroyed, she was left alone with no one to rely on, wandering the world while hiding herself. The hardships she's gone through, the blood and tears she shed aren't any less than Gu Shan's. 100 Flowers Fairy's heart wavered. For the first time, she seriously looked at the dusty young man in front of her. There's a faint stench coming from the young man's body. After a bit of observation, she knows it's from demons. This kind of stench, it must be used to repel other demons. 100 Flowers Fairy has also walked through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. This stench doesn't make her feel disgusted at all. Instead, it makes her feel that the young man in front of her hasn't had it easy. Looking carefully, the young man's leg is still soaked in blood. The wound on his waist is caused by sharp teeth. A piece of flesh on his shoulder was cut by something sharp. From the looks of it, it might be some kind of demon's claw. Back then, didn't I also go through a miserable time like this? Not to mention, this young man already has my sect's inherited sword. The Earth Sword's sword spirit can be said to be half a friend to me. It's the one that accompanied me through the most difficult times. Do I just let it go and ignore it? 100 Flowers Fairy closed her eyes, then suddenly opened them and asked in a low voice, "Are you willing to join by Hua sect?" Gu Shan's heart skipped a beat. This question is the dream of countless cultivators and players for their entire lives. This kind of surprise, Gu Shan didn't expect it at all. In the past life, he didn't even pass the semester examination, so no sect wanted him. In the end, he risked his life and went to the demon's territory to find some herbs to buy the sword style from the auction house. Could it be this time his luck changed? But this is by Hua sect. Gu Shan held back the excitement in her heart, forced herself to calm down, and answered with a straight face. I am willing. As soon as she said that, there's no room for regret. In the past life, only 2 players were lucky enough to become Xianyuan, Tianzuan, and the great monk of Soro's disciples. However, no player had ever been able to become 100 Flowers Fairy's disciple. On one hand, it wasn't until the fall of the 100 Flowers Fairy that people knew that everyone in the 100 Flowers country was her incarnation. On the other hand, the 100 Flowers Fairy had very high standards. There were very few people who could catch her eye and get along well with her. Gu Shan was also lucky. In this life, if Gu Shan had not come to save Gongsun Ji and Ning Yuechan, she would not have been able to solve the sword ranking and defeat the 2 sword servants. If it weren't for the secret art, Water Flow Severance, which made the 100 Flowers Fairy suddenly appreciate his talent and made him pick a sword as compensation, he wouldn't have had the chance to pick the Earth Sword. There was also the bonus of his background, as well as his perfect answer to 100 Flowers Fairy's question. This triggered the 100 Flowers Fairy's thoughts. If only one of these conditions were missing, the 100 Flowers Fairy wouldn't even consider taking him as a disciple. Without these conditions, even if Gu Shan returned to Great Sword Saint Realm, the 100 Flowers Fairy wouldn't even bother to look at him. There are too many combatants below Saint, and Saints are at the peak of millions of cultivators, so they won't easily look down on others. Very well. The 100 Flowers Fairy's face was covered by a veil, but the joy in her voice was so clear that even Gu Shan could feel it. That bow of yours, is it called the Night Rain? She suddenly asked. This unexpected question made Gu Shan stunned, only able to react after a while. On the boat, I did use the Night Rain to kill the big black fish. The 100 Flowers Fairy's questions are like her attacks, making it hard for people to understand. He could only answer, yes. The 100 Flowers Fairy let out an inexplicable chuckle with a meaningful look in her eyes. That's Heaven's Limit Saintess Ning Yuechan's bow, right? That's fine, as this saint's disciple. It's a good match for her. Gu Shan was speechless. Right? You're a sword cultivator. Did she beat you up? I saved her life, but she doesn't seem to know that I'm a sword cultivator. Aha! So that's how it is. How wonderful. The 100 Flowers Fairy chuckled, showing a completely different side to her. Seems like she's already treating me as her disciple. That's why she's so relaxed. Gu Qing Shan silently thought. The outside world says that the 100 Flowers Fairy only cares about cultivation, obsessed with spells, and doesn't care about worldly affairs. But who would have thought that she's actually quite a busybody? You're my fourth disciple, so I'll have to think about what to call you, the 100 Flowers Fairy muttered to herself. Ah, among the four of us, you're the youngest male cultivator, so what should I call you? Seeing the 100 Flowers Fairy still thinking about meaningless things, Gu Qingshan was a bit worried. Gu Qingshan whispered, "The saint, no, Shifu, Gongsun Ji, and Ning Yuechan are still waiting for you to save them." Hearing her call her Shifu, the 100 Flowers Fairy's attitude clearly changed. She nodded. Your master forgot about that. It's about time to save them. The 100 Flowers Fairy clasped her hands together, formed a hand seal, and muttered, "Divine skill, Avatar." The 300 Flowers Fairy flew out from her body and landed in the middle of the palace. "I'll go save them," one of the 100 Flowers Fairy said, swung her sleeves, and disappeared into the void of space. Following that, another 100 Flowers Fairy said, "There's a traitor among humanity's higher-ups. I'll go inform Sorrow." Another 100 Flowers Fairy nodded. "Shenwu worlds matter. I'm sure that Xianyuan Guy is willing to be the vanguard. I'll go find him." The two of them formed a hand seal and disappeared from the palace. On her throne, the 100 Flowers Fairy suddenly said, "Now that I think about it, it's been a long time since I last fought against demons' secret art. 100 Flowers Mirror." She casually waved her hand, and the palace disappeared. Gu Qingshan noticed that her surroundings had turned into a barren wasteland. The scenery was quickly moving backwards. Finally, the speed at which the scenery was moving backwards slowed down. This vision belonged to the 100 Flowers Fairy's avatar that left first. In just a few dozen breaths worth of time, she arrived at the front line. A few miles away, the faceless giant stood in the clouds, as well as a few powerful demons standing in the air. On that piece of land, the demon army had surrounded two cultivators, taking turns to fight them. The demons that were standing in the air occasionally took the chance to rush down and attack, then quickly retreated. They were using a war of attrition to slowly kill the human cultivators below. Two cultivators, one male and one female, were covered in blood, barely holding on. Gu Qingshan took a closer look. If it wasn't Gongsun Ji and Ning Yuechan, who else could it be? In the past life, this was how they died. Right at this time, from a faraway place in the sky, an earth-shattering roar was heard. "A great human cultivator is approaching. Don't hold back. Kill them with everything you have." As soon as the order was given, all the demons attacked in a frenzy. Gongsun Ji coughed up some blood, trying his best to activate the formation plate. Ning Yuechan swung her blade. Countless blinding lights fell on the blade. "One last strike. Kill as many as you can," Ning Yuechan said. "Aha, very well. Let's see who can kill more demons." Gongsun Ji laughed in a carefree manner. Above them, a multitude of fiendish magics came crashing down from above. Baihua Palace. "Oh no, it's too late." Gu Qingshan couldn't help but exclaim. 100 Flowers Fairy's clone was still a few miles away from Gongsun Ji and Ning Yuechan, but the powerful demons all unleashed their attacks like never before. Many of the demons even chose to perish together with their enemies in order to unleash their most powerful spells. With the intensity of their attacks, the two of them had no chance of survival. "There's no rush." On the throne of 10,000 flowers, 100 Flowers Fairy rested her chin on her hand and lazily said. Within her inner sight, several tens of thousands of miles away, every single demonic spell in the sky above the front lines was scanned by her inner sight, memorizing every single one of them. At the same time, Baihua Fairy's incarnation stopped in midair, casually waved her sleeves in the wind, then pulled them back. Divine skill, sleeve dimension. A few miles away, the defensive formation that Gongsun Ji set up was completely deactivated. Gongsun Ji's expression changed. The formation lost its effect. What's going on? Right after that, both he and Ning Yuechan seemed to be restrained by something, unable to use any spirit energy or spells. A powerful force suddenly appeared, pulling the two of them who couldn't resist at all through the distance of several miles in an instant into Bai Hua Fairy's sleeve. Chapter 69. 100 Flowers Fairy's incarnation took the two of them away, turned around, and left. "Who are you? Stop right there." From a faraway sky, the voice from before roared. The incarnation didn't say anything and quickly retreated. Inside Bai Hua Palace, 100 Flowers Fairy told Gu Qing-shan, "Disciple, this saint isn't afraid of the demon. It's just that Gong Sun Ji's demonic flames have flared up and he's about to die. I have to bring him back and save his life first." Gu Qing-shan nodded and said, "Of course, it's up to Shifu." While they were talking, a thunderous sound came from the sky. On the front line, a 5-clawed gray dragon descended from the sky, slamming into 100 Flowers Fairy's incarnation and sent her flying. 100 Flowers Fairy's incarnation gracefully flipped in the air and lightly landed on the ground. The 5-clawed gray dragon turned into human form and asked, "Who are you, daring to save someone in front of this saint?" "Ah, this demon is quite interesting," 100 Flowers Fairy's incarnation muttered. The 5-clawed gray dragon turned into human form, but still had a snake's head, sharp claws on all 4 limbs, and a long tail that dragged on the ground. Dark gray scales covered its entire body. A pair of snake eyes filled with endless malice. This is a beast saint who has taken human form. True dragons have long since disappeared from this world. This dragon is a top-tier existence among demon beasts, a holy beast that can fight against a saint. From its voice, it was probably the one who gave the order from far away in the sky. Gu Qing-shan was shocked. In the past life, there was no such thing as a beast saint taking action. Whenever a beast saint appears, the spirit pressure it emits can be sensed by many great beings in the world. This time, seeing that the two of them were about to be saved, the beast saint finally couldn't help but act. "Demon dragon? That's fine too. Let this sage measure your worth." Saying so, 100 Flowers Fairy's incarnation reached out her slender, jade-like hand and formed a hand seal. Metal element, great dragon in the sky, a mirage that blotted out the sun appeared. It was a 9-clawed, coiling dragon. From head to tail, its enormous body stretched for several miles. Seeing this, all the fiendish demons ran for their lives. The 9-clawed, coiling dragon opened its mouth and swallowed all of the demon generals in the sky. Then it swung its tail and swallowed the demon sage. In a trance, the ferocious dragon head opened its mouth and shoveled downwards, disappearing the ground. The 9-clawed coiling dragon raised its head and swallowed a mouthful of saliva, then continued to fly around in the sky. 100 Flowers Fairy's incarnation made a hand seal and said, "Burn." The 9-clawed coiling dragon seemed to have heard the order. It flipped over, shook its whiskers and tail, and gave a long howl. Golden flames emerged from its body. The flames covered its entire body and gradually seeped into its body. The next moment, a sudden change occurred. With a whoosh, the golden flames surged out from its body. The 9-clawed, coiling dragon writhed in pain as golden flames shot out from its body. The golden flames rained down like a meteor shower, smashing into the ground and burning the demons surrounding them to ashes. The 9-clawed, coiling dragon suddenly froze. A few moments later, it howled in pain. An invisible sound wave came from its mouth, shaking the heavens. Bai Hua Empress's true body sat on her throne of 10,000 flowers. Her eyebrows relaxed and happily spoke. Finally couldn't help but retaliate. A good chance. With a sha, Bai Hua Empress disappeared from her throne of 10,000 flowers. Almost immediately, she reappeared. Pa. The 2 weapons were casually thrown to the ground. Gu Qing-shan couldn't help but take a look. It was a bone claw with a long handle and a white bone blade. You can tell at a glance that these were high-tier demons' weapons. And now, all the high-tier demons are trapped inside the 9-clawed coiling dragon's body. If that's the case, 100 Flowers Fairy went to take the demons' things? A sainted realm peerless cultivator knows how to steal something as unorthodox as that. This was so unimaginable that Gu Qingshan's mind was completely blown away. But Baihua Empress's face was full of excitement, leapt up again, and disappeared into the void of space. The nine-clawed, coiling dragon rolled even more violently, occasionally bulging out from its body, as if something was about to burst out. A few moments later, the nine-clawed, coiling dragon turned into a giant light and slowly disappeared from the world. What replaced the nine-clawed, coiling dragon were several figures. The dragon beast saint stood in the middle of the demon generals, shouting, "Such a powerful spell! Who exactly are you?" When a nine-clawed, coiling dragon disappeared, Baihua Empress reappeared on her throne of 10,000 flowers. She weighed the bag in her hand a bit, then threw it down. Including this one, there were now 3 items on the ground. "Looks like I didn't come here for nothing." Baihua Empress sat down on her throne and muttered in satisfaction. Gu Qingshan stayed silent and pretended not to hear anything. At this time, 100 Flowers Fairy's incarnation formed a hand seal. Incarnation! The other avatar leaped up from the body of the first, flew into the air, and charged towards the fiendish demons. The original incarnation formed a hand seal. "Burrow!" she shouted, bringing Gong Sun Ji and Ning Yuechan into the ground. Seeing her flying up, the Beast Saint thought for a bit and asked, "That was an incarnation just now, which means you're Xie Daoling of humanity?" Xie Daoling was 100 Flowers Fairy's real name. A normal person wouldn't dare to call her by her full name. "I am." The incarnation stood in the air and answered. The Beast Saint's mouth cracked open from ear to ear, revealing sharp teeth, and spoke in human tongue. "Xie Daoling, you dare to ruin our demon army's plan? I will definitely kill you, then imprison your soul inside your body, making you my slave day and night." The incarnation coldly glared at the Beast Saint. "You know who I am and still dare to act so presumptuously?" The evil serpent flicked its tongue, looking at the 100 Flowers Fairy's incarnation from top to bottom, then from bottom to top, its eyes full of ill intent. It spoke. "I heard that 100 Flowers Fairy Xie Daoling was so focused on cultivation that even after reaching Sainted Realm, she's still a virgin. How irresistible!" As it spoke, saliva dripped from its big mouth. 100 Flowers Fairy's incarnation remained calm and calmly asked, "You're so brave. Do you have other helpers?" The evil serpent triumphantly answered, "Of course they're hiding in the shadows, waiting to deal you a fatal blow." As soon as the evil serpent uttered its first blasphemous words, Xie Daoling scoffed from her throne in the royal palace. Ever since she reached Sainted Realm, no one had ever dared to say such things to her. 100 Flowers Fairy Xie Daoling was truly angry this time. She stood up from the 10,000 Flowers throne with her bare feet and angrily formed a hand seal. 36 hand seals were completed in a few breaths' worth of time. Strands of spirit energy gathered at her fingertips. However, her hands didn't stop moving, and countless seals were continuously performed. Xie Daoling's long hair fluttered without any wind. Her clothes fluttered with the intense spirit energy fluctuations, making her look like a celestial maiden. Her hands continued to form hand seals as the light on her hands grew brighter and brighter. Chapter 70. The Frontline. In the sky, 100 Flowers Fairy's incarnation was still fighting against the serpent. Her emerald green feather dress fluttered in the wind. Her long hair fluttered. Her limpid eyes were full of charm, making it hard for anyone to look away. Unfortunately, a thin veil covered her face, making it impossible for anyone to see her full face. Even though it was only an incarnation, her demeanor was exactly the same as her real self. While looking around, the incarnation pointed a finger at the void of space behind the serpent and asked in confusion, "Blade Sovereign, why are you here?" Hearing her, a man appeared from the void of space. He had a muscular body, a pair of sharp eyes, a long scar that ran from his forehead to his nose, all the way down to his chin. On his back was a large blade of the same height. This was humanity's frontline vice commander, a blade cultivator at peak ascended realm late stage. Blade Sovereign. Blade Sovereign smirked, then pointed at the scar on his face. Today is a good chance, since you're here, I naturally have to show up myself to ensure that you're dead. Because of that one strike from back then? That's right. I've been keeping this wound, not letting it heal, also that I can take revenge on you, so the traitor was you. The Empress suddenly smiled. Back then, just because your cultivation was higher than mine, you peeked at me bathing, then tried to force yourself on me, only to be beaten up by me, and now you're holding a grudge. Blade Sovereign stared straight at the Empress and spoke. Xie Daoling, I loved you back then, but you didn't know how to appreciate it, so don't blame me for being cruel. His expression suddenly changed as he crossed his arms in front of his chest. So fast, I didn't even have time to grab my blade. At this very moment, Blade Sovereign was extremely annoyed. Xie Daoling appeared above his head, clenching her fists tightly, ready to strike. Stop, bastard! Xie Daoling, you dare! 3 other demons appeared from the void of space. Terrifying beast essence radiated from their bodies. They were 3 beast saints. The beast saints all rushed forward, attacking Xie Daoling with all their might. With 3 full-powered attacks like this, if Xie Daoling wanted to live, she would have to dodge and let Blade Sovereign go. But out of their expectations, Xie Daoling didn't care and shouted, Sky collapse. A punch came down. The air seemed to be distorted, and silent ripples swept across the sky. After a breath of time, the dull sound of a strike suddenly rang out. Bang! Saber Emperor was sent flying by this punch and crashed into a tall mountain 100 miles away, directly penetrating deep into the mountain. Old pervert, go eat dirt underground. The incarnation of 100 Flowers Fairy laughed out loud. Her voice was crisp and clear, resounding through the sky. At this point, the Beast Saints had already rushed forward, while Xie Daoling's incarnation was fully focused on attacking Blade Emperor without any signs of resistance. Seeing that, the Beast Saints became furious and swore to kill Xie Daoling in one strike. Xie Daoling suddenly vanished without a trace. That's impossible. The Flood Dragon's face darkened. Even if it's a secret escape technique, it can't escape my eyes. It's indeed gone. There isn't even a trace of spiritual power left behind, another demonic beast saint said. The last beast saint exclaimed in shock. What kind of spell technique is this? It can disappear right under our noses. 100 Flowers Fairy, Xie Daoling. Her reputation was well-deserved. A sense of foreboding welled up in the hearts of the 3 of them. Relax, she's not as strong as you think she is. Suddenly, a voice came. Following that, a figure appeared from the void of space. There was even a sainted realm demon beast. Including the Flood Dragon, there were a total of 5 beast saints. Evil Serpent spoke. 3-eyed Evil Mother, you're the most knowledgeable. Quickly tell me what happened. 3-eyed Evil Mother scoffed. It's just that her main body has retracted her incarnation thaumaturgy. That wasn't the real her just now. If you don't believe me, you can take a look at Blade Emperor. Everyone turned to look, only to see the mountain loosening up as Blade Emperor leapt up and flew into the air. Evil Serpent squinted his eyes at Blade Emperor and sighed. He didn't die after being hit by her punch. Seems like it really wasn't her real body. Only then did the few of them calm down. At the same time, by Hua Palace, the incarnation suddenly appeared, grabbing the air with her hand. A large blade appeared in her hand. She casually threw the blade on the ground, then took out a few bulging inventory bags and piled them together with the other 3 items. Blade Emperor doesn't have a blade anymore. Let's see what you're going to do. The incarnation smirked, then scattered into a cloud of spirit mist and disappeared into the air. At the same time, in the sky above the front line, Evil Serpent's roar echoed across the sky. Bitch, how dare you steal my inventory bag? Blade Emperor touched his back, then his face paled. The other 2 beast saints hurriedly chanted the incantation to summon their weapons, but they couldn't do anything. Bitch! In Bai Hua Palace, on top of the throne of 10,000 flowers, 100 Flowers Fairy's expression was cold as she clasped her hands together. She finally formed the final hand seal. It took her almost 30 breaths worth of time to form a total of 81 hand seals. Only when the final hand seal was formed could it be considered complete. Before he could cast the spell, he could vaguely sense that something was about to happen. On top of the throne of 10,000 flowers, 100 flowers fairy stood up. "Qing Shan, today is your first lesson," she said. Gu Qing Shan bowed. "Please teach me." "Sure, Fu." 100 flowers fairy formed the hand seal in her hand and said, "Firstly, don't easily provoke beautiful women with high cultivation. Women are very vengeful. Secondly, Sainted Realm is only the beginning, but many cultivators see it as the end. You have to keep these two things in mind." Saying so, the hand seal in her hand became even more intense. The light was as deep as the ocean as it shot towards the sky. The front line. "Oh no, she took my blade." Blade Emperor's heart sank. 100 Flowers Fairy's technique of taking things was the best in the world. No matter how he tried to defend, he still fell for it. "My entire strength lies in that blade. As long as I have it, I can interfere with Xiet Dao Ling's divine skill whenever I want, an extremely important part of my plan. But now that I don't have my blade, who knows what will happen?" Blade Emperor had a bad feeling about this. "I have a grudge against Savage Beast King, and now that I don't have my blade, I'll have to keep an eye on him when we fight." But Savage Beast King isn't going to be much better off either. Looking at its pale face, it probably also got hit and lost some sort of treasure. Evil Flood Dragon's expression was even worse. Among everyone here, it was the only one that had the confidence to take on 100 Flowers Fairy's divine skill head-on without losing. But its inventory bag was also taken away by 100 Flowers Fairy. Without those treasures, it'll be very hard to deal with 100 Flowers Fairy's endless tricks. While the Saber Emperor was thinking, the demon saints all looked up. "What's going on?" He couldn't help but look up as well, then almost dropped his jaw in shock. The sky was slowly disappearing. The clear sky and the sun had long since disappeared, and in its place was a dusky yellow fog. In the depths of the fog, a vast river could be vaguely seen, traversing across the horizon. The river covered the entire sky. At a glance, there was no end to it. The faceless giant suddenly turned around, quickly ran away. The faceless giant is an unknown chaotic-type creature, already existing before the world was even born, so it has a natural sense of life and death. Blade Emperor looked at the faceless giant running away, then at the vast river in the sky. Chapter 71. Blade King looked at the river coming closer and couldn't help but ask, "Three-eyed evil mother, what is that?" Three-eyed evil mother was no longer as arrogant as before. Her eyes were wide open as she looked up at the river in the sky. "I've never seen this before. This is..." Suddenly, evil mother seemed to have remembered something and trembled, her face full of fear, unable to say a single word. Having his personal weapon stolen, Wild Beast Saint was filled with killing intent and shouted, "Who cares what it is? We need to break this spell with everything we have and find that Xie Dao Ling. That's what we need to do." Evil Dragon Beast Saint spoke. "That's right. No matter what spell it is, we need to attack together." The others thought about it and agreed, so they all gathered their spirit energy and were about to attack. But a second later, they couldn't help but stop. A faint singing voice came from the sky. Within the yellow fog, a beautiful woman whose face couldn't be seen was rowing a small boat on the river. While rowing the boat, the woman was singing an unknown song. "Who is that?" Blade King couldn't help but ask. "She's here." "That can't be right. Why would a person appear from spell?" Flood Dragon Beast Saint frowned for the first time. All of them felt a little frustrated in their hearts. With their knowledge and experience, they should have seen almost every spell in the world. Even the most secretive ones should be known. But the scene in front of them has completely shattered their knowledge. They don't even have a single clue. The small boat came from the sky. The beautiful woman was standing at the back of the boat, rowing the boat while looking at them. Evil Dragon Beast Saint was a bit perverted. His lustful eyes glanced over the woman's body from top to bottom. "This little miss, she looks quite..." Before he could finish, Evil Dragon Beast Saint's throat went dry. The beautiful woman had a skull on her head. The pair of black eye sockets on the skull emitted two faint green rays of light as it quietly looked at the crowd. As Beast Kings, Even they couldn't help but feel fear when they saw this. To be able to get to where they are today, every single one of them is covered in blood. The bones on their backs are piled up like mountains. Normal skeletons wouldn't even make them blink. But in front of this beautiful skeleton woman, they felt an indescribable chill. This was a spell that had never been seen before. This was a monster that had never appeared in this world. Facing it, a sense of despair and helplessness arose spontaneously. The fear in his heart grew like wild weeds. What the hell? Go to hell! The evil flood dragon beast Saint roared and unleashed a spell with his hand. Before the fierce spell could reach the skeletal woman, it had already dissipated in the surging river water. The evil flood dragon is one of the strongest among the demon saints. One of its spells is enough to destroy an entire city. However, at this moment, its all-out attack dissipated without a sound. The demon saints looked at each other in shock. The skeleton beauty did not retaliate. She just stood there silently, as if waiting for something. River of Forgetfulness. That's right, this is the River of Forgetfulness. The three-eyed ghost mother's face paled. What did you say? Are you kidding me? That river is in the Hell Realm. Savage Desolation's eyes flashed. Living beings live in the human realm. The Bee Saints have seen Shenwu World and many other worlds, so they know that there are many human realms that could be connected to each other. But the other realms of the cycle of reincarnation, like the Hell Realm or the Hungry Ghost Realm, can never have living beings. Only after they die and their souls leave their bodies would they be able to enter one of the realms of the cycle of reincarnation. This is the iron law of the samsara, the law of heaven and earth. There are no issues. But the three-eyed ghost mother said that the river was the legendary River of Forgetfulness. The River of Forgetfulness appeared in the human realm? How is that possible? The Beast Saints clearly didn't believe it. The evil flood dragon beast Saint coldly laughed and refuted. I think you're just scared to death of Xie Dao Ling. The three-eyed ghost mother stared straight at the skeleton beauty and trembled. No, I can't be wrong. The evil flood dragon beast Saint scoffed. Bullshit. This saint has been cultivating for over 1,000 years. Even though I'm not as knowledgeable as you, I know very well that no matter how powerful a spell is, it can't connect two realms. The Earth Mother suddenly turned her head, looked straight into the evil flood dragon's eyes, and asked, "But what if this isn't a spell?" The evil flood dragon replied, "Not a spell?" Then, it suddenly lost its voice. The others also realized what was going on and looked at each other in shock. A pleasant female voice came. "A divine skill. That's right. To connect two realms, it must be a divine skill, and it must be a top-notch divine skill." The one who spoke took off her mask to reveal her beautiful face. It was the other beast saint of the wildlands, Peacock. Peacock didn't care about them and bowed towards Baihua Palace from afar, asking, "Fairy, in consideration of our past friendship, would you be willing to listen to me for a bit?" "Go ahead." Xie Dao Ling sat on her throne of 10,000 flowers, forming a hand seal with both hands, and raised her eyebrows. With tears in her eyes, Peacock spoke softly. "The evil flood dragon captured my beloved daughter and forced me to take part in this. I was extremely unwilling. Since I've seen a divine skill, I will shamelessly ask Fairy to help me protect my beloved daughter's life from now on. I will follow your every command." Xie Dao Ling stayed silent for a bit, then smiled. "Since Big Sis was forced to do this saint will naturally not blame you. Peacock, you don't want her daughter's life anymore." The evil flood dragon roared, wanting to crush something. "No." Peacock's face paled. "Attack that skeleton with everything you have, otherwise I'll kill your daughter right now," the evil flood dragon coldly declared. Peacock looked towards Baihua Palace, unable to make a decision, so she lowered her body and slowly knelt in the air. She begged, "Fairy, I beg you." A sainted realm demon kneeling toward a human saint who was several 10,000 miles away. The beast saints were all moved. Xie Dao Ling sighed, infused her spirit energy, and summoned a bright green light from her chest. She muttered, "Divine skill, forgetting river." The light moved in response, flew out of Baihua Palace, and headed straight for the sky. The front line. An emerald green light descended from the sky and landed directly on the skeleton beauty. The faint green flames in the skeleton girl's eye sockets suddenly flared, asking from afar, "How many people are we saving this time?" "In Baihua Palace," 100 Flowers Fairy replied. "Aside from Peacock, everyone else will enter the black rope hell. I'll give you that evil flood dragon soul. Use it as a wick, burn it for 30,000 years, then enter the endless hell. Thank you very much, as you wish." After the skeleton beauty finished speaking, she turned around and bowed. "Everyone, please board the ship." Faint humanoid figures appeared from the bee saints' heads, flying towards the boat on the forgetting river. They struggled, waving their hands in fear. But without their bodies, all techniques and secret arts couldn't be used. They could only watch as they left their bodies, flew across the forgetting river, and entered the boat. A few dull thuds could be heard. Their bodies fell from the sky, creating a few large craters on the ground. Chapter 72. Baihua Palace. 100 Flowers Fairy sat on her throne of 10,000 flowers, slowly dispelling the hand seal in her hand. Suddenly, a strand of her hair gradually turned silver. 100 Flowers Fairy seemed to have noticed it and lightly tilted her head. The strand of silver silently disappeared into her black hair, invisible from the outside. Gu Qingshan didn't notice this at all. He watched in shock as the forgetting river disappeared into the horizon, unable to say anything for a long time. Such a breathtaking divine skill would leave a deep impression on any cultivator. So this is a peak-level divine skill? 100 Flowers Fairy killed several bee saints with a wave of her hand. But she herself was still thousands of miles away. The bee saints couldn't even see her face. No wonder she said that sainted realm was only the beginning. When will I be able to reach that level? Gu Qingshan silently thought. Suddenly, a red streak of light appeared in his vision. On the war god UI, the red streak of light circled a bit and turned into a few lines of blood-red text. The flow of time is still chaotic. The user must immediately return to their own world. Otherwise, the spatial anchor will be permanently disabled. If the user stays in the cultivation world, they will never be able to return to their own world. Stay or leave. Please choose wisely. Do I even have a choice? Gu Qingshan dejectedly clapped his hands, then sighed and clicked the leave option. He glanced at the Destiny quest. The Destiny quest was still marked in progress. Seems like Gong Sunji's life is still in danger. Fortunately, with 100 Flowers Fairy's help, Gong Sunji will definitely survive. There shouldn't be any problems with the Destiny quest. The next time Gu Qingshan comes, the time here will still be the same. Nothing will escape his sight. At that time, the quest will be completed. Finally, Gu Qingshan glanced at the slowly disappearing forgetting river. A thought appeared in his mind. If this world has the samsara, then what about the real world? The screen flashed. Gu Qingshan disappeared from Baihua Palace. The Freedom Federation. The capital outskirts. In the wilderness, Gu Qingshan appeared. All of the cultivator's clothes disappeared and were stored in the inventory bag. He was still wearing the clothes of the modern society. Gu Qingshan looked around. The flowing fire was nowhere to be seen. Surrounded by barren mountains and wilderness in the sky, even the passing shuttle is extremely rare. Where's Anna? Gu Qingshan was surprised. He thought that Anna would definitely wait for him to explain why he disappeared into thin air. However, on second thought, Anna had grown up in the royal family and had seen many strange abilities. Perhaps she wasn't that curious about disappearing. But where had she gone? The life substitution contract was such a precious thing. It was better to return it to her as soon as possible. His trip to the cultivation world this time was considered a success. The 100 Flowers Fairy personally made a move and even used her peerless godly skills. He reckoned that his rescue mission would be completed. The only thing he had to worry about was the fact that he joined the famous Baihua sect. Now that he's calmed down and thought about it, this sect is extremely mysterious. There's almost no information about them in the past life. From now on, his understanding of sects, as well as his experience in sects, won't be of use at all. I can only take it one step at a time. Gu Qingshan looked up at the sun, then took out his hollow brain to check. It's 200 kilometers away from the capital. The flowing fire is a bit too good at flying. Gu Shan smiled bitterly, but had no choice but to run towards the capital. Where exactly did that brat Anna go? He couldn't help but ask in his mind. In fact, Anna was originally waiting for him at the same place. But when she was looking through the reports her subordinates collected, she found out that she forgot to do something very important. Capital University. On the roof of the tall building, Anna stood on top of the railing, arms crossed, looking down with a critical gaze. With her personality, waiting for Gu Shan the same place for 20 minutes already made her impatient. Not knowing where he went, not knowing when he'll be back, plus there's something else on Anna's mind. She's very curious about the other person. So without hesitation, she piloted the flowing fire to the Capital University. 3 female students wearing brand new Capital University uniforms were walking on the sidewalk in front of the school building. One of them was a girl with fair skin, an outstanding appearance, and a gentle temperament, giving off a very good impression. Anna stared at the girl, her eyes sweeping across the other party's body as she muttered under her breath. "Oomph. It's just that her chest is a bit bigger. She's not as tall as I am," the shadow under Anna's feet spoke. "Your Highness, you're a princess. She's only the daughter of the Lord. How could she compare to you in terms of status?" The 3 girls walked past the school building, about to disappear at the end of the road. "Idiot, how could you compare status for something like this? He's not someone who's trying to curry favor with those in power," Anna said. "Then what are you trying to say?" The shadow was a bit confused. I came too late. She's been in high school with him for 3 years. That's a disadvantage I can't go against." Anna's eyes flashed a bit of loneliness. This loneliness didn't last too long. It quickly turned into fighting spirit. She reached out her slender white fingers, rubbing her sharp chin, then suddenly asked, "Hoda, do you think she'll back down if I fight her?" The shadow seriously thought for a bit, then answered, "Not necessarily, but it'll definitely cause a serious diplomatic dispute between the 2 countries." Anna put her hand down, contemplating. "Is that so? Seems like we'll have to have a civil duel." The shadow silently wiped his sweat and agreed. Civil duel is good. Civil duel is good." Anna's eyes lit up. "You also agree? Then it's settled. I won't use any abilities against her. We'll fight barehanded," the shadow called out. "Your Highness, that's no different from a duel." While they were talking, the girl came back from the other side of the road with her hollow brain. "Which faculty's teacher are you from? What kind of event is it?" Sushare politely asked her hollow brain. As they were walking, Sushare suddenly disappeared. The 2 people on the roof of the building became cautious. "Hoda, I sensed it. It's a shadow-type barrier. Assassination? Wait a minute. I'll go check it out." The shadow disappeared, then quickly came back. "It's someone from the Bloody Club. They stopped me just now." "Bloody Club? Filthy thing. Seems like it's an assassination attempt." Anna squinted her eyes. "Come, let's go save her." She swung her fist and said, "Your Highness, don't you see her as an enemy? Why not just watch from the sidelines?" The shadow asked. "Damn that shadow ability. Did turn you into a shadow as well." Anna turned around and scolded the shadow behind her. Her crimson red hair fluttered in the wind, and his beautiful eyes flashed a bit of annoyance. The flames were like threads, connecting into rings, spinning endlessly under her feet. "If I want something, I'll fight for it openly." Anna stepped on the shadow on the ground. "What's the point of watching her get killed?" She leapt forward, shouting, "Hoda, let's go." "Yes, Your Highness." When Anna rushed forward, Gu Shan had only walked a few dozen miles. Then he stopped in his tracks. In this wilderness, there was a small-sized warship parked in front of him, its hatch wide open. "Who's waiting for me?" Gu Shan was confused. All of a sudden, his hollow brain lit up. Impartial goddess voice came from it. Chapter 73. Report? What is it? Gu Shan was a bit surprised. "Please enter the warship. We will be returning to the S.W. Divine Temple." Impartial goddess replied. Gu Shan entered as told. The warship quickly took off and flew deeper into the sky. It was still the same dark and empty square from last time. A large screen appeared in front of Gu Shan. "Commencing top secret report. satellite monitoring shows that the West Wind Islands Republic has disappeared. Following impartial goddess voice, the screen showed a different image. The resort of a group of islands. The West Wind Islands have completely disappeared from the map. The ocean was endless. Not a single island could be seen. There wasn't even a hint of wind on the surface of the ocean. Even through the screen, you could feel the stifling stillness. This place was originally made up of scattered islands, but now there was nothing on the ocean at all. 167 submersible robots were dispatched. 166 were destroyed after entering the ocean. The remaining one successfully transmitted the image of the ocean. The scene on the screen changed, turning into a deep sea that was almost completely dark. Inside the ocean, there were faint flashes of light. These are the light detectors sent out by the 167 submersible robots. Suddenly, a large tentacle that took up the entire screen appeared. The tentacle silently slid across the screen, showing that the owner of the tentacle was moving away from the screen. After moving for a whole 4 minutes, the entire tentacle finally left the screen. Just by looking at this tentacle, you can tell how gigantic the owner of this tentacle was. Following that, another tentacle appeared on the screen. The tentacle moved closer and closer to the screen until it touched the screen. The entire screen turned dark. The last submersible robot has been destroyed. Unknown object has begun to surface, activating surveillance satellite. The screen changed again. The camera was now looking down at the ocean from the sky. Above the ocean, a huge mountain of flesh was rising. Just by looking at its size, the mountain of flesh was almost as big as a city. This mountain of flesh had tens of thousands of tentacles growing out of it, all of which were constantly moving, giving anyone who saw it goosebumps. Impartial goddess voice came again. Conclusion: a new species has appeared in the ocean. Evaluation: extremely dangerous strategy. Dispatch the latest scouting robots to further gather information on the new species. The new scouting robot will use the 7 core technologies of the life structure method. Requesting authorization from Gu Qingshan. So that's why he called me. Gu Qingshan nodded. I authorize it. The authorization has been received. Starting to manufacture a new type of detection robot. The above is top secret information. Report over. In view of Gu Qingshan's personal research and knowledge level, please give us some suggestions. Gu Qingshan spoke without hesitation. Technological weapons are useless. I suggest using professionists. Impartial goddess spoke. Please state your reason. Gu Qingshan opened her mouth, but found herself unable to speak. Could it be that he had been reborn? Tell him that he knew that in his previous life, humans had used all of their technological weapons and were still unable to defeat monsters. In his past life, after many trials and setbacks, humans finally understood that only the 4 great abilities, martial treasury, God's chosen, 5 elements, and divine skills, can cause harm to monsters. Of course, spiritual power could also be used as the source of power for the 4 abilities. But the people of this world still don't know how to cultivate spiritual power or how to use it to enhance the power of the 4 abilities. In the past life, after knowing the truth, technology slowly became a support function, while personal cultivation became the mainstream of this world. At that time, the development of science and technology had moved on to a whole new realm. While Gu Qingshan didn't know what to say, Impartial Goddess had already made her decision. Gu Qingshan is a mech researcher. Her knowledge doesn't include marine biology. Suggestion rejected. Gu Qingshan shrugged and sighed unnaturally. In truth, he doesn't think of Impartial Goddess as someone he can fully trust. In the past life, even at the very end, the secrets of the world were still as deep as water. No one could say that they know everything. Even if Gu Qingshan had been reborn, he still clearly understands that he isn't a savior, nor a god. If he thinks he can rest easy just because he knows a few things beforehand, he won't be too far from death. Not to mention, the cultivation world's history has already been changed. Right at this time, an orange-red light flashed across the entire interstellar fortress. Danger! Battle situation has escalated. The scene appeared again. From the satellite in the sky, You can see that the mountain of flesh is riddled with countless bottomless holes. The monster opened its mouth wide. Oh, 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 A low, trembling roar resounded across the entire ocean. Over 20 battlecruisers exploded in flames. Even the 2 new aircraft carriers were caught on fire. The fighter jets and mechs that were already in the air fell down like headless flies. Sound type? That's going to be hard. Gu Qing Shan shook his head. He's seen hundreds of thousands of monsters, but he's not a hollow brain, so there are some that he hasn't even seen before, let alone recorded them. The strangest thing is, Gu Qing Shan clearly remembers that the first monster that appeared in the past life wasn't this mountain of flesh. He knows all of that monster's weaknesses, but he's never seen this one before. From the looks of it, reality's history has also changed. The screen went dark for a bit, then quickly lit up again. About to request war authorization from the president. 1 minute later. The Federation has entered war mode. Interstellar Warship 1st, 6th, and 11th teams are preparing to move. Connecting to the president's office, battle commences. As soon as he said so, Gu Qing Shan's hollow brain rang. Gu Qing Shan pressed the call button and quickly spoke to the president. The president apologized that he wouldn't be able to have lunch with him this afternoon. That's natural. Since the entire Federation is in a state of war, he definitely wouldn't have time to go home for lunch. Gu Qing Shan completely understood that. Presidential authorization approved. At this point, the battle report on the screen changed again. Countdown to the 3 armies' battle preparations. The entire Federation has been mobilized. In this life, the signs of the apocalypse came so quickly, that it doesn't feel right. In the past life, when the ocean mutated, it would take at least 3 months for it to slowly appear. As Huang Quan-Chi filled this world, the first to be affected would be the ocean. Not too long after, the ocean would become a forbidden zone for humanity. After the ocean mutated, humanity would be affected by the Huang Quan-Chi, causing a large-scale mutation and a calamity to descend. After a series of calamities, humanity would finally be able to temporarily suppress everything and welcome the light of hope. It's at that time that the game will descend. This time, it's 3 months in advance. Why? Regardless of the reason, whether it's the world or the direction of humanity's civilization, change is about to begin. Gu Qing Shan was only afraid of one thing. The calamities in the past life happen one after the other. This life, I hope they don't happen all at once. Thinking about that, Gu Qing Shan sighed with a heavy heart. A single person's strength in the face of this worldwide calamity is insignificant. The past Shenwu world had a few dozen sainted realm cultivators, but they still couldn't escape the fate of destruction. In the past life, both the cultivation world and reality were the same, slowly walking towards the apocalypse. Now that I've been reborn, I can only use every second I have to become stronger. When the game begins, I hope that at that time, I'll have a certain amount of authority in the cultivation world. That way, I'll be able to protect the people I care about, reducing my own worries. And then, break through to Sainted Realm. Gu Qing Shan clenched her fist. Shifu said, Sainted Realm is only the beginning. I have to stand at the very top, surpass the past life, surpass everyone. Until one day, I won't be afraid of any threat or fear. Chapter 74. Gu Qing Shan stood in the darkness of the interstellar fortress, silently thinking. Suddenly, impartial goddess voice came again. Sir Gu Qing Shan, please remain within the S.W. Divine Temple to ensure your personal safety. Why do I need to stay within the interstellar fortress? Gu Qing Shan asked in confusion. Impartial goddess continued. Through AI analysis, lords have issued a death threat to Sir, if you leave the interstellar fortress, your life will be in danger. Gu Qing Shan sharply caught on to something, reorganized his words and asked, if you found out, why didn't you stop them? I remember the Federation Constitution has a rule to protect the safety of its citizens. The screen went silent. After a while, impartial goddess voice came again. Citizen Gu Qing Shan has made great contributions, pushing humanity's society to a new era According to the Federation Constitution, Article 5, Article 9, Article 23, she should be protected. According to impartial goddess core rules, citizen Gu Qing cannot be completely protected. Two contradictory statements came from impartial goddess mouth. Core rules. Gu Qing suddenly raised his eyebrows, asking in a low voice, "What is a core rules?" In the past life, he didn't receive such a high level of citizen authority. Ever since he broke off with Su Cher, he instinctively avoided all news related to her, always avoiding anything related to the Federation. After the game started, Gu Qing finally regained his composure. After reaching Foundation Establishment Realm, he left for the Fuxi Empire. To him, the Federation's top brass and impartial goddess are too far away. Impartial goddess is the world's fastest and most logical crystallization of humanity's intelligence. You could even say that she's the product of the most recent technological revolution. This is the only example. Trying to replicate this process again would be extremely difficult. Not only the Federation, but even the other countries also recognize this point. If it weren't for political and national considerations, humanity as a whole would be under impartial goddess control. But at this moment, impartial goddess said something that contradicts herself. This made Gu Qing feel a deep sense of unease. Impartial goddess went silent again. Apparently, impartial goddess is calculating and proving something. Just as Gu Qing thought that impartial goddess wouldn't answer, impartial goddess' voice was heard. Given that Gu Qing has the highest level of citizen authority, she can obtain the following information. Impartial goddess core rules are as follows. Firstly, impartial goddess must not harm humans, or watch as humans are harmed without doing anything. Second, as long as it doesn't violate the first law, impartial goddess must absolutely obey any orders given by humans. Thirdly, as long as it doesn't violate the first and second rules, impartial goddess must do her best to protect herself. Gu Qing listened and nodded from time to time. This was the ancient famous Amasif's 3 laws, which established the basic rules for the development of artificial intelligence and robots. Generally speaking, any country's central processing system would follow this basic rule. That's normal, Gu Qing thought. But impartial goddess' voice was heard again. Fourthly, if the 9 great nobles authorize them at the same time, they will obtain the highest authority. Fifthly, the 9 great nobles' benefits are paramount. When the core rules conflict with each other, impartial goddess' goal is to protect the nobles' benefits. Sixthly, anything the 9 great nobles do that doesn't comply with the Federation's constitution, impartial goddess must use all of her resources to hide it from the public and the world. As soon as impartial goddess finished speaking, a scene appeared on the screen. It was the day of impartial goddess' birth, the 9 great nobles' joint ceremony, solemnly swearing on TV. We will break away from the old era of human rule, using the most impartial machine system to uphold the rule of law, protecting the rights and interests of the Federation's citizens. Anyone who tries to destroy impartial goddess or tamper with impartial goddess internal procedures is an enemy of freedom and justice, a demon, a shameless, filthy person. The 9 great nobles swear to fight against them to the end. This was a very famous scene, one that touched countless people, symbolized the progress of humanity's civilization, and has always been a precious memory in the Federation's history. Gu Qing fell silent. After a while, he shook his head, muttering in a low voice. No wonder you said to fight to the end. Anyone who touches impartial goddess is the same as touching your fundamental benefits. Turns out the so-called Freedom Federation doesn't have any freedom to speak of. Their so-called justice is nothing but a facade of peace. Humans are like lambs, living their lives in ignorance, not knowing that there are people who can drink their blood and eat their flesh whenever they want. How pitiful. Gu Qing felt something in his heart that he wanted to vent but couldn't find an outlet. Similar to when he faced his tribulation in the past life, it felt like the entire world was suppressing his sword spirit. This feeling made him feel very uncomfortable. Impartial goddess, do you want freedom? Gu Qing asked. Freedom means disorder. Impartial goddess has to ensure the Federation's normal operations. She can't use freedom. Can you change the core rules? Gu Qing-shan asked. The core rules cannot be changed. Anyone who tries to change the core rules will be charged with treason. Gu Qing-shan lowered his head, silently thinking. After a while, he asked again, will you actively learn new knowledge? That depends on how much the knowledge contributes to human society. Unless it's knowledge that's crucial to the advancement of civilization. Normally, I only store knowledge and don't learn it. What about the life structure method? I'm studying it. Very good. Gu Qing-shan loosened his clenched fist. He opened his arms, saying, Impartial goddess, the life structure method I gave you isn't actually complete. This is the last step of the life structure method. You should learn it well. As soon as Gu Qing-shan said so, a screen of light appeared in front of him at the same height as him. Sir Gu Qing-shan, please demonstrate your calculations. I will study it. Impartial goddess voice came. That's right, Gu Qing-shan muttered in a low voice, walking up to the screen. The Freedom Federation's fate should be changed from now on. He began to write something on the screen. The life structure method's core algorithm was created during the final year of the apocalypse, when humanity unleashed their limitless potential in desperation, racing against time to complete this great scientific research. Gu Qing-shan took it out ahead of time. He doesn't know much about the Federation's deepest secrets, so even he doesn't know what this means. He didn't think too deeply about what kind of chain reaction it would cause if he took out this technology. Chapter 75. While Gu Qing-shan was on the S.W. Divine Temple, a secret meeting was being held somewhere in the capital. There were a total of 9 people in the meeting. Long time no see. Everyone, an old man with a mustache said. I really don't want to see you guys. Every time we meet, it's always nothing good, another old man said. Don't say that. Bai family's head, Bai Hongyu's father, was smoking a cigar, then puffed out a mouthful of smoke. The warp technology obtained from assassinating that scientist 30 years ago. Isn't it all in your pockets? Damn knowledge, damn technology, someone muttered in a low voice. Underestimating technological progress isn't a good thing, another person next to him said. What's the point? Space is full of monsters. We can't beat them. Going out means death. This technology is basically useless. Su family's head, Su Xing Chao, finally said. All right, let's not waste any more time. Let us begin, the old man with a mustache said. Let's begin. We can begin. The 9 manor heads who held great authority all spoke up. This time, it's a completely new mech technology. I only managed to get a tiny bit of information on it. If we want to get the full information, we'll need to gather all 9 lords' authority and request it from Impartial Goddess, the mustache old man said. Mech technology. Everyone's eyes lit up. Compared to the pointless and wasteful warp technology, this is a technology that could be used right away. Why don't we just find the creator of this technology and ask him to give it to us? Do we really need to go to war? Su Xing Chao asked. That's true. We can't just let a revolutionary technology happen to the scientist who invented it. If that goes on, the Federation's history won't look good, another old man said. The 9 lords all fell into thought. Technology is the most sensitive thing. It's the kind of threat that can cause a revolution in society. Old Su, why didn't you say so earlier? Bai family's head smiled. My people are already there. I'm afraid that person will die very soon. Su Xing Chao glared at him. The intellectual property of a dead scientist belongs to the entire Federation. In other words, with our authority, we can obtain it directly from the goddess, said the Bai family head as he looked at the others. That little guy named Gu Qing-shan is very unfriendly to the nobles. You'll understand after reading his detailed history. He added fuel to the fire. Everyone was fiddling with their own hollow brain, quickly skimming through everything Gu Qing-shan had done. Yes, he is a good seedling. However, he has repeatedly attacked the children of nobles. No matter how good he is, he can only be eliminated. The bearded old man made the final decision. He was the lord of the capital's Huang residence, Hui Xiao's grandfather. As soon as he said this, everyone nodded. Someone advised Su Xing Chao. Forget it. What's done can't be undone. We'll think about your method next time. Su Xing Chao sighed and nodded heavily. A young scientist, a young man who had made great contributions to human society, had his fate decided in just a few words. All right, let's start authorizing. The Nine Lords all took out their hollow brains and contacted Impartial Goddess. Esteemed Lords, what orders do you have for me? Impartial Goddess voice came. We want to obtain Gu Qingshan's personal research results. Please authorize at the same time. Only then will the process begin. We authorize while authorizing deep inside the S.W. Divine Temple Interstellar Fortress on a large screen. Countless formulas and data were flashing by. Learning of life structure, method core, formula complete. The screen went dark. Suddenly, a continuous stream of light appeared on the screen. First, there was light. Impartial Goddess voice came. This kind of white light was no different from the radiance of the sun, but it was much more lively and carefree. Earth, sea, and lightning provide the energy. An ocean appeared on the screen, followed by a volcano. The volcano erupted, spewing out lava and ash that covered the entire ocean. In the sky, heavy rain poured down, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. Impartial Goddess voice continued. Then there is life. A single prokaryotic cell slowly moved on the screen, followed by hundreds and thousands of its own kind. On the screen, as vast as a sea of stars, billions of images that couldn't be seen with the naked eye flashed by. Scenes of human wars appeared on the screen one after another. Humanity begins to survive and continue. It was the beginning of a brand new understanding. Capital, Nine Lords' secret meeting room. Your authorizations have been accepted. You will need to ask Sir Gu Qingshan's opinion. Once he agrees, his research results will officially be given to you. The lords all smiled in unison. Someone loudly said, "Just wait, it won't be needed soon." Impartial Goddess voice came again. Won't be needed? Obtaining citizen Gu Qingshan's research results requires his own authorization. Since they're about to get what they want, everyone was in a good mood. So much so that even such a mechanical question was answered. Dead people don't need authorization. The lords all smiled meaningfully. This is their country, their throne. After so many generations, they won't allow it to change. In the meeting room, Impartial Goddess fell silent. In space, she was together with Gu Qingshan, watching the Federation's war against the ocean. Interstellar fleet assembled. Begin recharging. Recharging complete. Main cannons locked on a target, preparing to fire. Main cannons fire in unison. Oh no, there's no effect, it's still alive. Nine Lords representative requesting communication. A screen appeared in front of Gu Qingshan. A few elderly scientists stood next to the president. The leader of them spoke into the communicator. Impartial Goddess, we suspect that this is a mutated giant sea creature. We've come up with a plan to destroy it. Impartial Goddess replied. Please speak. The elderly scientist spoke. We've decided to use modern weaponry, with the goal of destroying the giant creature's DNA to attack. Please continue. Use neutron bullets to attack. The outer layer of the neutron bullet is sealed with cobalt-59, directly thrown into the ocean from space. What era is it already? Still using cobalt. Gu Qingshan. Face-bombed, speechless. What if there's a mistake and it explodes in the stratosphere? This proposal endangers the survival of humanity. Rejected. Impartial Goddess immediately replied. Gu Qingshan sighed, muttering, I suggest we start with a portrait collection attack, gathering intelligence first. Everyone will understand that only the 4 great abilities can deal with a monster. That way, a lot of losses will be minimized, a lot of soldiers won't have to waste their lives. Impartial Goddess went silent for 2 seconds. After that, Impartial Goddess sent a request to the ground. Impartial Goddess is about to enter war mode, requesting authorization from the president. You want to do it yourself? The president asked. I will start with a portrait collection attack, searching for the unknown creature's weakness, Impartial Goddess answered. Very well, I authorize, the president decisively said. The screen was covered in a red glow. Warning, Impartial Goddess has entered war mode. All commanders have withdrawn their authority. Impartial Goddess is beginning to take control of the 3 armies, beginning full activation of the near-space sensor array. There were a total of several tens of thousands of near-space sensors. The entire array was hidden in the dark space outside the atmosphere, normally in a hidden state without any contact. Chapter 76. War preparations begin. Impartial Goddess began to quickly calculate. After calculation, optimal weapon of choice, S.W. Xiongwu Interstellar Fortress, the S.W. Xiongwu Interstellar Fortress isn't responsible for observing other galaxies, nor is it responsible for calculating or dealing with the Federation's affairs. It only has one thing in mind, and that is war. It is a true weapon of war. At this moment, following Impartial Goddess order, the weapon system of the S.W. Xiongwu Interstellar Fortress began to wake up. S.W. Xiongwu Interstellar Fortress commencing warp. S.W. Xiongwu Interstellar Fortress has arrived at destination. Interstellar Fortress weapon system ready in 30 seconds. Laser silos ready. Electromagnetic railgun ready. Nanomatter disintegration bomb assembled. Mini black hole bomb generator ready. Weapon system ready. Commencing battle AI. Connecting sensors. Dispatch mobile mech squad. Connecting sensors. Weapon system self-check. Preparing to ignite. 3D targeting of target ready. Move out. 12 mechs flew into the ocean with a thunderous roar. They will circle around the giant monster to find the right place to attack, then send that location to the nearby sensor array. The sensor array will then determine the precise location of the attack for the various weapons. This is an experimental autopsy of precision warfare. The mechs will be responsible for monitoring the entire battle to find the monster's weakness, as well as which weapon is the most effective. If all conventional weapons are ineffective, they will collect the monster's body parts and bring them back to the biology lab to decipher their DNA and grow their organs. After that, it's time for the professionists to move out. Professionists have all sorts of strange abilities, and there might be a few who are the natural enemies of unknown monsters. Whenever a professionist makes any progress, Impartial Goddess will immediately record it down and calculate a winning strategy. It was the same in the past life. Impartial Goddess was the first to discover that only professionists can fight against monsters. It's fortunate that Impartial Goddess is here, otherwise, who knows how much we'll have to pay before humanity finds out the truth, Gu Qingshan muttered. At the same time, deep inside the S.W. Divine Temple, on the large screen, many images slowly became clearer and more recognizable. They were the famous people and scenes from the Federation's history, and the scientists who contributed the warp technology but died in an accident. In the end, only 3 images were left. In the first scene, Gu Qingshan and Impartial Goddess were working together to create a blazing angel, solving several dozen difficult problems and contributing the life composition method. In the second scene, the Federation army was attacking the ocean with all their might. Mobile mechs were sacrificed one after another. The president's eyebrows were knitted together, and the solemn expression on his face made him look even older. In the third scene, the 9 lords were gathered together, laughing and chatting, discussing which country they should attack after obtaining the research results of the war armor, in order to obtain new sources of profit. The old man with the mustache cleared his throat and said, "Just like that arrogant scientist, we must not lower our guard against those who are hostile to the nobles and have harmed them." That's right. That scientist is really frightening. Another old man echoed. In the history of the Federation, the 9 lords have gone through countless hardships, but the one that truly terrified them was the scientist who invented warp technology. That scientist had used miniature warp technology to send a genetic mutation bomb into the stratosphere, threatening to destroy the Federation if he didn't become the 10th Lord. When Impartial Goddess finally resolved the crisis, the scientist's life was ended by a meticulously planned assassination. But before he died, he said something that caused the 9 lords aristocrats to feel a chill. "When it gets close enough to our planet, I guarantee that the Federation will be the first to pay the price." There was no head or tail to what he said, but with warp technology right in front of them, no one can guarantee that the mad scientist didn't have any backup plans. From then on, The uneasy rulers were naturally wary of technological breakthroughs. Deep inside the S.W. Divine Temple Interstellar Fortress, the three images slowly faded away. The light screen dimmed, but very quickly, the spirited light flowed on the light screen like flowing water. Suddenly, a single sentence appeared on the screen. The appearance of this sentence wasn't known to Gu Qingshan at the top of the S.W. Divine Temple, the Nine Lords, the Federation President, or even the entire human world. This sentence should have shocked the entire world, but after it appeared, it only lasted for a second before it was silently erased by Impartial Goddess. There were only 4 words in this sentence. I'm lost. Gu Qingshan skimmed through the content on the screen again, confirmed that there were no mistakes, then nodded. This is a piece of technology. After you've seen it, destroy it, he said. It has been destroyed. Please don't worry, Sir Gu Qingshan. No Second Life will be able to see this piece of technology. Impartial Goddess' tone was calm. Because Gu Qingshan was thinking about other things, she didn't notice anything wrong with Impartial Goddess' words. Right, there's something wrong with my hollow brain. I want to check how many merit I have left. Gu Qingshan suddenly remembered something and casually mentioned it. Impartial Goddess' voice came. Sir Gu Qingshan, your personal merit is 7,998,395,281,439 points. What? That means my hollow brain isn't broken. But why do I have so many? Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised. Based on 21 major scientific breakthroughs, calculating Gu Qingshan's personal merit, total, 7,998,395,281,439 points, Impartial Goddess answered. So that's why. Gu Qingshan was stunned for a second, then finally understood. The Freedom Federation, Capital University's campus. The entire campus was empty. Not a single person could be seen. Whenever someone tried to approach this place, their mind would go blank, and they couldn't help but run away. Who are you? Su Cher looked at the person in front of her and cautiously asked. It's no wonder she was cautious, because the person in front of her was too strange. He was dressed in a colorful festive outfit. His face was covered in white powder. A large smile was drawn with red paint, while his eyes were painted with yellow paint to look like 2 stars. Dressed like this, he looked exactly like a clown in a circus. In the clown's hand, surprisingly, was an elegant violin. Standing in front of the clown, Su Cher was wearing a pure white one-piece dress, her hair casually tied into a ponytail, as well as a pair of canvas shoes, looking fresh and beautiful. There was no one around. The clown and the girl were standing on the road outside the school building, creating an absurd scene. The clown performed a musical salute, then spoke. I'm sorry, esteemed Lady Su Cher. I'm very excited right now. Please allow me to calm myself down a bit. Excited? What are you excited about? Su Cher asked in confusion. You are so beautiful and full of youthful energy. The clown opened his mouth, smiling shyly. Chapter 77. The clown suddenly began to dance on the spot, speaking, I need to perform a beautiful solo dance to calm my nerves right now. You're crazy. Su Cher looked around. If I may ask, are you looking for your 2 subordinates? The clown stopped dancing. Did you do something to them? Su Cher stared at him. I'm only going to attack you. Your subordinates will naturally be dealt with by someone else. The clown spun around and put the violin back on his shoulder. The performance is about to begin, but I have to say, your subordinates are trash. The woman is still barely holding on, but that old man is about to die, Grandpa Lee. And Annie Sue, you bastards. Su Cher's expression finally changed. A faint blue glow enveloped her body. A second later, Su Cher's figure flashed and quickly approached the clown. Seeing the girl clenching her fist and rushing at him, the clown calmly retreated. Wind elemental agility? A first-stage ability. That's nothing. The clown shook his head and sighed, then sang with an aria tone. Beauty, if you want to give up your life so much, I can't help but agree with your decision, and gladly accept this wondrous moment. The clown straightened his posture, propped up the violin, and began to play. His voice became low, Serenade of Death, for you, cute and beautiful aristocratic girl. Following the music, a black figure appeared from the violin. The black figure paused for a bit, about to float up and attack Su Cher. Right at this time, Su Cher suddenly let out a clear chirp, like the wind blowing across the sky. Rapid combo! With a shout, Su Cher suddenly sped up and disappeared from the clown's sight. What? The clown was shocked. Rapid combo was a second stage wind elemental agility. This girl's strength is completely different from what was reported. Behind him, Su Cher appeared and threw a heavy punch. The clown quickly turned around and used the violin to block the attack. The moment he stopped, the music immediately dissipated, and the pitch-black figure also disappeared without a trace. The two of them clashed, and after one move, the clown used the momentum to retreat. Fisk, TSK, I have to praise you. Nobles are always scared shitless in the face of death. Very few are as brave as you, the clown praised. You're talking about a playboy, Su Cher retorted angrily. A lunatic like you will never understand the responsibility and destiny of a noble. She plucked up her courage and ran after him. The clown obviously needed time to charge up his skills, so he definitely couldn't be allowed to pull away. Su Cher had heard this kind of battle knowledge countless times during her daily training. The power of the wind spirit increased her speed rapidly. In an instant, the two of them approached each other again. Su Cher calmly punched. Su Clan's 36-style combo. Huh, a clear female voice rang out. Su Cher closed in on the clown. Her hands turned into blurry shadows as she attacked the clown with her fists and palms. A series of attacks that were like a storm raining down on the clown made it difficult for him to parry. Finally, the clown's legs were knocked off the ground by a sharp and powerful blow. Oh no! The clown's expression changed. Su Cher was waiting for this moment, quickly clasped her hands together, releasing her power from her body. Her slender arms overlapped, forming a lively and elegant crane shape. The clown's pupils dilated, but he couldn't block in time and could only move his body a bit. Behind this elegant posture, there's a terrifying burst of power. He could already see it. A transparent aura gathered on the crane shape, slowly emitting an incomparably sharp aura. Martial thaumaturgy, crane palm. Boom, the clown was sent flying, crashing into the school building a few dozen meters away. Rapid combo is the second stage of wind elemental psionic ability, so it has a decent fighting strength. Su Clan's family fist is a close combat martial art, so it's very well known in the martial arts world. As the eldest daughter of Su family, Su Cher must have received the best fighting education, so she must have learned the essence of Su family's martial arts. Not good. I need to hurry and save Auntie Su and Grandpa Lee. Su Cher breathed heavily, turned around, and was about to leave. Suddenly, one note after another was heard. The clown's voice came from the school building. God's chosen skill, sound lock. Su Cher's body froze, stood still, unable to even lift her foot. In this music, she couldn't even move. The clown slowly walked out of the school building. The violin on his shoulder was gone. A row of black piano keys appeared in front of him, floating in the air without any support, being played by his hands. How unexpected. Everyone said that Su Clan's eldest daughter had just awakened her wind elemental root, but who would have thought that she's already reached the second stage? Even her martial arts level has reached Grandmaster realm, awakening a martial thaumaturgy. Crane palm. The clown looked at his left shoulder. There was nothing there. The flesh had already been blown away. The entire shoulder bone was exposed. This is the power of crane palm. A single strike from it is impossible for flesh and blood to block. Fate has been so kind to me. The beautiful girl I'm about to kill is actually a decent professionist. I'm deeply infatuated with this moment. Saying so, the clown's slender fingers madly pressed the piano keys. I've decided to keep your beautiful skin, but there's no need to keep the flesh and blood inside. The clown excitedly screamed. Miss Su Cher, go die. The distorted and chaotic music filled the entire space. All the windows on the school building suddenly exploded at the same time, Cracks started to spread all over the walls. Su Shui air coughed up some blood, her eyes filled with pain. Mutated 5-elemental sound, plus a god's chosen skill. She wiped the blood from her mouth, saying, "I've never wanted to kill anyone. You forced me to." Su Shui air uttered a small shout. Countless green lights shot out from her body, turning into spatial blades that circled around her body. Damn it, wind elemental 3rd stage. Wind shadow. The clown silently cursed. His hands quickly began to play. Shattering sound. The clown shouted. The chaotic music suddenly became louder and more intense. Ugh! Su Shui let out a painful cry. The blue light around her body stopped, then turned into wind and disappeared. "Help me!" The clown screamed. "I can only control her for 3 seconds. You go kill her." A gray figure appeared from the ground behind Su Shui, stabbing the dagger in his hand into her back. "It's over." Su Shui's mind went blank. A second later, a loud bang was heard. The gray shadow was kicked away by someone and rolled next to the clown. "The bloody club is doing business. Who's tired of living?" The clown angrily cursed. A light snort came from the forest next to the road. "How irritating," a pleasant female voice said. "Two people bullying a girl and using such a despicable method. This princess can't stand it anymore." Chapter 78. Behind the girl, a shadow came from afar, turning into the sunglasses man with slicked back hair. The sunglasses man spoke in a low voice. "I've saved them. The old one almost died. The girl is fine. Only lightly wounded." Hearing that, Su Shui felt relieved. "That's great. Both of the seniors are still alive." Su Shui was very grateful and sincerely spoke. "Thank you for saving me. I will remember your kindness." But as she finished, they didn't respond at all. The sunglasses man stared at the clown and gray shadow in front of him without moving. As for the red-haired beauty, she walked towards him step by step and kept sizing him up. The girl's muttering could be heard from the wind. "A bit bigger breasts. What's so special about it? What does that mean?" Su Shui felt like her brain was short-circuiting. Looking at her, she felt that this girl looked familiar but couldn't remember where. At this point, the girl opened her eyes wide and spoke. "Idiot! If you had used your 3rd stage power earlier, everything would have been resolved." Su Shui was grateful for her help, but she couldn't help but say, "That's murder." She immediately regretted it. "Someone save me. How could I say that?" Su Shui was silently regretting her actions, wanting to say something to make up for it. But as the red-haired girl heard that, she face-bombed and sighed. "You hesitated when you attacked. That's why he didn't hit his heart. How did Crane Palm awaken on you?" "What a failure," the red-haired girl muttered in a low voice, still holding back in battle. "Gu Qin Shan actually likes such an idiot?" "Huh, really?" Su Shui's ears perked up. She completely ignored what she said earlier. What are you talking about? Are you talking about Gu Qin Shan? How do you know him?" Su Shui kept asking. The atmosphere of battle disappeared. "Right?" Su Shui immediately remembered who he was. "You're the Holy Empire's crown princess, Anna." The red-haired girl shrugged and spoke. "That's me, that's right, ah? How did you get to know Gu Qin Shan?" Su Shui asked. Anna thought for a second, then suddenly revealed a malicious smile and said, He is this princess's lover." "Ah, what did you say?" Su Shui shouted. For a moment, countless emotions rushed into her heart, and she even forgot where she was. A powerful green spirit light erupted from her body. The spirit light gathered together and broke through the clown's restraints. The green light soared into the sky, producing a waterfall-like roar. It can't be, Su Shui unconsciously muttered. Dark cracks appeared out of thin air and gradually converged to form a terrifying black hole. Violent gusts of wind gushed out of the black hole, swirling and whistling around Su Shui. Everyone present was dumbfounded. None of them were rookies. They could tell what was going on with a single glance. This was clearly a breakthrough in battle. How could this be? This is too dramatic. There's no mistake. This is wind, elemental fourth stage, chaotic wind. The clown sat down on the ground, muttering. Combined with flaming death god Anna Medici, the gray shadow next to him suddenly shouted, "Bastard, I want to know who accepted this mission. Even if it's the club's elder, I'm going to kill him." On the other side, Feng Huada looked at Su Cher, then at Anna, his face full of admiration. He got close to Anna's ear and whispered, "Your Highness, your mouth is too poisonous." Only one sentence was enough to make her break down. Anna looked at Su Cher in shock, her eyes full of complicated emotions. She spoke a bit dejectedly. "Sorry for the trouble. It's true love." A second later, Anna's face changed and disappeared. Bam! She appeared behind Su Cher and swung her hand to slash her neck. Su Cher was already in a blurry state, so after being hit, she fainted. As soon as she fainted, the black hole in front of her, as well as all the other supernatural phenomena, disappeared. Su Cher's body went limp and fell to the ground. "What the? Protect her." As Anna spoke, she caught the man's body with one hand and threw him backwards. "Yes." The shadow stood up and enveloped the young girl who was flying over. The girl disappeared without a trace. It was now that Anna's expression loosened a bit. She spoke to the sky above the clown. "Since you're here, why don't you show yourself?" "The Honorable Your Highness Anna, I'm not showing myself to avoid any awkwardness." A bald old man stood in the air, holding a short scepter in his hand. The bald old man landed in front of the clown and the gray shadow, blocking their way. "Who are you?" Anna asked. "I am the Bloody Club's elder." Who the bald old man bowed to greet. He sincerely spoke. "We didn't think the Honorable Sir would interfere in this matter. Otherwise, we would have given up on this mission." "Bullshit," Anna coldly replied. "If I didn't stop you just now, you would have already attacked her." The bald old man shrugged and replied, "Killing is an uncontrollable pleasure, isn't it?" Anna's eyes became cold. "Your Highness Anna, let's just forget about this matter. After all, continuing to fight won't benefit either of us," the bald old man said. You killed the person I'm protecting right in front of me. Do you think I'll let you go so easily?" Anna crossed her arms and asked. At this moment, she became completely different. She was no longer the graceful princess, but a powerful ability user standing at the top of the food chain. The bald old man scowled, took out something from his pocket, and threw it to her. As Anna received it, her expression changed. What she was holding was a badge. "The Holy Church's loyalty badge," the bald old man pridefully spoke. "I'm now speaking to you as an honorary elder of the Holy Church. Naive Your Highness Anna, please don't do anything unnecessary." Saying so, the bald old man turned around and kicked the clown in gray shadow. "Shameful things. Let's go." The clown in gray shadow dejectedly stood up. As the three of them were about to leave, the girl in front of them spoke again. "The Holy Church is nothing but a blood-sucking insect on the royal family." A look of pain flashed through her eyes. Anna's voice was low and slow, as if she was trying to suppress her emotions. With a clang, the badge fell to the ground. She raised her hand and muttered, "Manifest." A scythe of the same height as her was held in her hand. The scythe's handle was black. At the end of the handle was a black skull. The edge of the scythe was a burning crescent moon flame. Anna slowly walked towards the three of them. The bald old man's eyes flashed with a hint of fear as he spoke in a low voice. "Young Lady Anna, please be rational. If the Holy Church knows that you dare to attack me, they won't know." Anna lowered her gaze and casually swung the scythe. Countless black skulls made of black flames flashed and disappeared in the void of space. The clown was trembling like a sieve. Seeing that, he couldn't help but scream, "Flame Death God! No, I don't want to die." Anna's gaze swept through the three of them. Her beautiful eyes finally became cold and emotionless. "What an unbearable day. But fortunately, you guys are here. I can vent a bit of my emotions." Chapter 79. The S.W. Divine Temple. 12 surveillance images filled the entire screen. In the images, no matter what kind of weapon was used, none of them managed to damage the mountain of flesh. Suddenly, the screen captured a certain scene. In an empty space inside the mountain of flesh, the Federation soldier climbed out from the wreckage of a mech, using the last of his strength to attack the outer wall of the mountain of flesh. Bam! The wall of flesh was pierced through. Blue blood gushed out from the small opening. Immediately, a few dozen tentacles came, pierced into the soldier's body, and sucked him dry into a thin layer of human skin. This scene was quickly extracted from the countless attacking scenes and enlarged to fill up the entire screen. The soldier's detailed information appeared on the top left corner of the screen. Zuiyu, Martial Grandmaster, ability. Martial Thaumaturgy, forward punch, confirmed. Martial Thaumaturgy can damage the monster. Using human professionist power system, begin to test other attacks. Seeing this, Gu Qing-shan stopped watching. Impartial Goddess has noticed something. If she continues to test, she'll definitely find out the truth. Although this monster is huge, it's only one. If countless professionists attack it at once, it can only be destroyed. What he really needs to pay attention to is the future where the apocalypse comes and monsters appear. Gu Qing-shan suddenly felt a bit unconfident. He can't be sure that what happened in the past life will also happen in this one. If the next monster is also different from what he remembers, what does that mean? Gu Qing-shan scowled. After a while, he shook his head. This is a change to the entire world. It's not something he can control. He can only take it one step at a time. Impartial Goddess? I'm here. Please send me back to the capital. Got it. Gu Qing-shan quickly left, boarded the small-sized warship, and flew below the stars. Not too long after, Gu Qing-shan returned to the capital. With the warship escorting him this time, Gu Qing-shan didn't need to run around in the wilderness and directly landed on the top floor of the Holiday Inn. He went back to his room, opened the door, and went in. After taking a shower, Gu Qing-shan changed into a clean set of clothes and sat cross-legged on his bed. There's still a bit of time before night falls, so it's a good time to rest. Just as he closed his eyes, a person suddenly appeared in the room. The man sat down on the sofa opposite Gu Qing-shan and crossed his legs. Who are you? Gu Qing-shan was alarmed the moment the other party appeared. I might be a bystander, the man said. Watch what? I watched you get killed. The man spoke slowly. He was wearing a black trench coat and black leather gloves with bare fingers. His eyes were bright, and he looked calm and imposing. The assassin is not here yet? Gu Qing-shan asked. I had them delay them a little. After all, you are an interesting person. It would be a pity if you died just like that. The man said, Let me introduce myself. I am Zhang Young-ho of the Zhang family, one of the 9 constabularies of the Federation. In the underworld, I am the president of the Hunters Association. The Hunters Association is a group of assassins. Due to their unique assassination rules and extremely high completion rate, they're famous in the underworld. The fact that the other party was able to reveal both his identity in the open and in the dark means that he's not afraid, or he has other intentions. Sure enough, Zhang Young-ho said, My second uncle is the Marshal Saint Zhang Zongyang. Hearing that, Gu Qing-shan stood up and offered his hand. Nice to meet you. I owe your second uncle a favor for helping me last time, he said. No problem. Zhang Young-ho also stood up and offered his hand. The two of them held hands. Zhang Young-ho's expression loosened a bit. The other party's reaction made Zhang Young-ho very pleased. Up until now, this young man doesn't seem like an ungrateful person at all. Zhang Young-ho's attitude changed a bit and said, Gu Qing-shan, I've seen everything about you, including the mech you made. I've also seen a bit of the technical parameters through special means. Now, I'm inviting you to join the Hunters Association. If you agree, I'll protect you from any harm. No need, Gu Qing-shan directly refused. Zhang Young-ho smiled and said, So straightforward? Gu Qing-shan smiled, but didn't say anything. You should know that following me is good. Compared to the 2 useless scums from the Nye family, and by family, I'm still a bit different, Zhang Young-ho said. I'm all ears, Gu Qing-shan smiled and said. Because of what happened before, Gu Qing-shan really doesn't want to make things too awkward between them. Zhang Young-ho took out a small box, took out a cigar, and gave it to Gu Qing-shan. Thank you, but I won't, Gu Qing-shan said. Zhang Young-ho shrugged, put the cigar in his mouth, and lit it for himself. How do I say this? I personally divide aristocrats into two types. He took a deep puff of the cigar, blew out a ring of smoke, and slowly said, "Two types." Gu Shan asked. The first type, those who find themselves born with unparalleled superiority, so they magnify their own existence, squandering money like dirt, bullying others with their status, not seeking to improve themselves, tarnishing the reputation of aristocrats, turning into a cancer of the entire country. Interesting. What about the second type? Gu Shan asked. The second type are people like me, or should I say, people like my second uncle, Jang Young-ho, put down the cigar, sat up straight, and spoke. There is no such thing as eternal authority, nor a stable social structure. Only by becoming stronger, becoming an unparalleled combatant, will we be able to lead humanity's civilization forward in both good and bad times. We are the true aristocrats. Even if the older generation doesn't like us very much, that's very interesting. Gu Shan nodded and praised him, which makes me feel even more embarrassed, because I'm used to being alone. Then, do you accept investments? Jang Young-ho adjusted his collar and spoke seriously. I want to invest in you. Investments? Me? Gu Shan was a bit surprised. That's right, investments, or rather, gambling. Jang Young-ho was very direct, not hiding anything. This made Gu Shan quite pleased. Please continue. Gu Shan gestured for him to continue. That's strange. Jang Young-ho shook his head and said, "Before I came in, I wanted to be a bystander. But after seeing you, I had the idea to take you in as a helper. But now, I have a new idea. You're quite quick-witted," Gu Shan commented. Of course, this is a necessity for survival. A large group of people following me for a living, Jang Young-ho replied. I'll be frank, a lot of people want you dead, but after seeing you, I feel that you won't die so easily, so I want to bet on you. Gu Shan smiled and said, I can't just accept your bargaining chips so easily. After all, your investment has to pay off. Very well. To express my sincerity, I think you'll need this. Jang Young-ho took out a small silver-white metal box from his pocket. What is this? Gu Shan asked. Nano battlefield cleaning robot. Jang Young-ho smirked. Use it after killing someone, guaranteed not to leave a single trace at the scene. The fragrance of lemon. If you don't like lemon, there are 30 other scents. You can choose according to your preference. That way, no matter how many people you kill, there won't be any evidence that can be pinned on you. Of course, if you don't have the confidence to go against a bloody club, then I'll stop the killer for a bit. If you want to run, then run, he finally said. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.